All right, 7:45 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us on the OTB AM this morning. A lot busy show for you coming your way over the next little bit. Owen, Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
Very excited. We've lots of good stuff upcoming. A couple of surprises as well on the cards over the next hour and a half or thereabouts.
Looking forward to that. Whatever those surprises
It's a show of a difference this morning, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? We've sort of torn up the script, the running orders. Gone out the window a little bit.
Gone out the window, exactly. We tend to do that on a Friday anyway, don't we? Or we just kind of elongate the running order, or whatever you're having yourself, really.
I think that's just an everyday thing, if I'm being honest. But
the fact that we're sitting at the table at 7:45 is a novel approach.
In itself, it should be a clear indicator to the audience that we've something a bit different in mind. So we'll come to all of that in a little bit. We've the newspapers to come to. There's few interesting bits and bobs going on there. We've lots of good rugby stuff to come to. In fact, we'll give you a bit of a flavour of what it is that's coming up between now and 9 or 15:15. Jason Quigley is going to join us live on the line in just a couple of minutes' time. So that's part of the reason we've had to tear up the running order this morning. He defended his WBC NABF title in the last few hours. So he's going to join us on the line very shortly indeed to discuss all of that. The sports page is coming your way. Give you a flavour of those. Kevin Kilbane, yes, he does still work for Off the Ball. Will be with us at about 8:20 or thereabouts. An interesting weekend of football ahead, so we'll discuss all of that. And hopefully Kev is in his kitchen, which is a feature that I don't think we've done so far this season. So that's coming your way about 8:20. We're going to talk Katie Taylor as well, and Alan Quinlan will be with us to preview all the weekend's ChampionsCup action. So a busy weekend of rugby and plenty to get Alan's thoughts on. So that's all coming your way at about 9 o'clock or thereabouts. What are you most excited about, Owen, for the show this morning?
Well, hearing from Jason Quigley, really, getting him hot out of the ring after a tough enough fight against Hernandez this morning. That's it's always exciting to get somebody straight after that. We don't usually get it. We're here in the morning. It's kind of like the closest thing we have to react is like the night before, for example. Yeah. It's very rare that we've got something that happened right here this morning. It's
Los Angeles time, and I think we'll be able to call him on in just a couple of minutes' time. And we'll do all that. We've gummy bears, gummy, what are they called? What's the name of the books?
Oh, Goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
I'm sure plenty of people of a certain age will be familiar with Goosebumps series.
Because it was a new one on me.
Anyone under 30, I'd imagine.
Right, okay.
Because I can remember the mobile library coming around to the school. And,
right.
You know, the Goosebumps books would be a staple of those libraries.
Right.
And you'd go and you'd select and return them a couple of weeks later. I do recall the books being quite relatively old when I got my hands on them, so I naturally assumed that we were one of the younger generations could get our hands on this. But
the books were from like way back in
it seemed that way.
The 80s or whatever.
Yeah, they're kids' horror books. There was about over 200 of them. I read a fair few of them during my childhood, and they're actually excellent.
What was the mobile library like?
It was good. It was like a big truck, and you walk in and there was a bookshelf. You've seen mobile libraries before?
Yeah. It's kind of, I don't know, they're in my sort of, like it's like a dream dream sequence, like the Flying Doctor or something like that. I always think the mobile libraries, there's something quite cool about it.
Yeah, there is. Like I guess if you're into literature, it is a dream scenario for anybody, isn't it? It's like you can go places and you can sift through books.
Anyway, why are we rambling on about the gummy bears?
Because
what's it called? What's the movie? Goosebumps.
Goosebumps, because there's a gummy bear coming into studio. The horrendous gummy bear whose features in Goosebumps 2 is going to be popping in for a chat, apparently.
I mean, hold your breath, as I heard Joe Malloy saying last weekend. Right, we mentioned Jason Quigley beat Mexico's Freddy Hernandez in Los Angeles overnight, defending his WBC NABF title at the same venue that he won that title last year, and he's joining us live on the line now. Jason, good morning to you.
All right, now guys.
Hey, look, the shades are on. Is it less than 3 hours since the fight?
Yeah, that's it now. It's in the past already, so it is. But it's a fresh memory. It's great to go and win a vacant title. But when you go out there, win a vacant title, then you go and defend it, then you can really say you're the real champion. It's a great feeling, and it was a great fight tonight.
Yeah, very much a case of job done, but tougher work than you expected, Jason.
Yeah, to be honest, the first 4 or 5 rounds did exactly what my corner told me to do, did exactly what the game plan was, and went out there, boxed the ears off him. So it did, as you could say, in the first 4 or 5 rounds, and it was kind of maybe a bit too easy, and then I got a wee bit lazy and got brought back into a bit of a war and a bit of a fight. I don't know if that's the Irish in me or what it is. you know, but I got drawn into a fight, and I had to get back out of that again and get back to my boxing near the later end of the fight, and that's what I did to get the victory. What's
happening at that stage, Jason? Because by all accounts, reading the reports, that was exactly it. It looked as if it was a case of your really confident start. Like, you're, by the sounds of things, you're thinking, right, I have this guy exactly where I want him. So what are you thinking at that point when you talk about that sort of laziness?
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure. You know, it's something that I'm going to have to go back and assess now. You know, kind of what went on through that distance. Maybe it was just Freddie Hernandez. You know what I mean? He's a strong veteran, experienced fighter. You know, maybe that was his game plan. You know, to maybe take a few shots early on and then try and come on strong in the middle half of the fight. And you know, it worked for him, but it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and in that sort of that middle part, like, it becomes a bit of a slugfest. Is that right? It's a good bit of sort of pulling and dragging, I suppose.
Of course it was. You know, and when I'm at my boxing and when I'm moving, sticking the jab, throwing nice clean right hands, everything like that. You know, everything's on point. Everything's looking like $1 million. I don't know, as it says, what it's in me. I do tend to like to get into a bit of a war and let shots go and try and bang men out of there. It's something that I'm going to have to just pull back the reins on a little bit and stick to my skill and stick to my talent a lot better. But, you know, as I says, and I said this in interviews before the fight, Freddie Hernandez is going to be a great test for me, and he was a great test for me. These are the types of fights and the type of experience that you need to get to the top level, and tonight you could say maybe a passing exam of being in with a veteran, and you know, he's a top class fighter, so it was a lot of experience. He's a rugged, uses all the tricks of the trade that he has learned over his 19-year span, and you know, he used them well tonight. But as I said, that's in the bank for me now. That's experience learned tonight, and I came away victorious and still undefeated and still the NABF middleweight champion.
I think this was your second fight under Dominic Ingle. How do you feel that this process is developing? Do you think that you're getting somewhere in terms of, I guess, an end game that perhaps isn't being shown at the moment just yet, but there is kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, that you've got a couple of fights under your belt before the Dominic Ingle process fully shows itself, I guess?
Yeah, you know, like, I've been working in Sheffield now with the likes of Dominic Ingle and his brother John Ingle, and also Simon was over here as well on the camp with us as well, and it was a great team effort over here throughout the whole training camp. And my last fight, obviously in March, I only had 2 or 3 weeks to work with the team, whereas, you know, I've had a full, you could say, 9-10 months now working with the team and getting back to my boxing, and I showed that and proved that early on in the fight. You know, whereas my last fight that I fought in Boston, I tried to bang the guy out of there right away. I was throwing big shots and getting into terror pretty early. Whereas this time, you know, the first 4 or 5 rounds, stuck to my boxing, nice, clean, sharp boxing, but got into a bit of a war then. But everything seems to be going to plan. You know, there's a lot of positives to take away from tonight. There's a lot of learning to take away from tonight, and that's what this game's all about. It's about learning, getting that experience. And most importantly of all, stayed undefeated and stayed NABF middleweight champion.
When you're so soon after the fight, Jason, how's the body feeling now? Like, is it sore at this point? Are you still waiting for that to almost kick in some ways, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, I might waking up tomorrow morning with a few niggles and bruises here and there, but right now I'm still on a bit of a buzz and everything like that. I don't feel too much, so feeling pretty good, and as it says, maybe tomorrow I might wake up a bit stiff after doing 10 hard rounds.
The hands obviously were a big thing for you over the last little while in terms of the injury picked up in the last fight. How are they feeling?
Yeah, the hands are feeling good, you know, feeling good, feeling strong. Obviously, going 10 rounds and hitting a man on the head, the hardest part of the body is the skull, you know what I mean? They might be always a wee bit bruised, but don't feel nothing so far. I know my hands feel good, I feel fresh, and but it's always the next day you wake up, you might feel a few niggles here and there.
Have you a few clips around the eyes?
Nah, the sun's well bright inside this reception.
I won't pursue that one anymore then. Here, you mentioned the 10 rounds a couple of times there, and that aspect too. You weren't expecting it to go that far, were you?
No, to be honest, I was. You know, Freddie Hernandez, he's been in with the likes of Bobo Andrade, he's been in with the likes of Ruslan Lara. These men have went on to be multiple world champions, and they couldn't take him out inside the distance. You know, so I expected a tough fight tonight. I expected him to be there all night long and take the shots that I was giving him. You know, so I expected the 10 rounds. I was prepared for the 10 rounds, and you know, coming away from it, I'm always going to look back, and that's the kind of experience that you can't buy or you can't get in the gym. You know, going 10 rounds with a man like that there that has been to levels that I haven't been to before, that has boxed for the likes of the world title and everything before, things that I'm chasing down now and climbing my way towards. So tonight was very, very valuable in terms of experience and learning and growing.
When you talk about what's next for you now, Jason, I presume you're going to be watching Ryota Murata quite closely this weekend?
Yeah, that's correct. You know, I fought a few days earlier than maybe we were intended to fight, you know, and for a different colour and a different name of a belt as well. But look, everything's a process. Everything happens for a reason. The Ryota Murata fight didn't happen. That had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my management team, Sheer Sports or Golden Boy. That was all down to Murata's team. They looked over a few things that they shouldn't have looked over, and you know, we were there, we were ready to fight him, but things just fell through on his side. So whether it's going to happen again or not, we're not too sure. But look, at the end of the day, you know, it's enjoying this moment right now, enjoying this victory, and wake up tomorrow and we can start planning ahead then.
Yeah, I hate then to ask, do you have the beating of Murata?
Sorry, what's that?
I was just going to ask if you do have the beating of Murata, should that fight be announced in the next, say, if it happens in the next year?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You know, the Murata fight, Rob Brandt's a great fighter as well, that he's fighting on Saturday night. So, you know, it's going to be a good fight. So it is, and he has to do his job. He has to come through that, and you know, he comes through Rob Brandt on Saturday night. He won't have to come looking for me. He'll be one hell of an Irishman waiting for him if he's ready for it.
What's coming down the line? I know that you've mentioned obviously you want to enjoy tonight, and we're going to let you go and do that now in a couple of minutes. But what's coming down the line for you? Are you thinking, Jason, in terms of, like, I mean, is a Canelo or a Golovkin at some point on your sights now?
You know, I'm in this game to become world champion, and these men are top of the tree right now at the minute. I'm climbing up that trunk of the tree, and I'm reaching for the top of it. So I am, and if these lads are there when it's my turn, you know, come this time next year, who knows, it might happen. Who knows, are they going to be still world champion? Whoever the world champion is going to be, that's who I'm going to want to fight. And it'll be great if it's Canelo, it'll be great if it's Golovkin, because they're two big names, and it'll be great to share the ring with them and take a few straps off them as well.
I think it's just coming up on midnight, if I'm right there.
Yeah, just hitting midnight here now, so it is. So the party's only starting, or it's only ending one way or another.
I was going to ask you, I'm sure it's in full swing. What's the plan for the night?
Plan for the night now is we're going to chill out. There's a lot of Irish here now. You'll hear them all here now. I'll go and chill with them there now. You know, appreciative of all the support. There's a lot of people that has travelled a long way to come and watch me over here in California. It's not an easy trip to make, but it's worth it when you get here, and it's not cheap either. But you know, I appreciate all the support, and all the support back at home as well has been absolutely amazing, and I'm very grateful for it all.
Good, and lots of lovely messages coming in for you. Give us a last look at the belt there before we leave you.
There you go, lads, and still the NABF middleweight champ.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, enjoy the night, Jason. Thanks a million for taking the call. Well done again.
Appreciate it, lads. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Jason Quigley live in the line there from Los Angeles, following the successful defence of his belt against Freddie Hernandez overnight.
Yeah, where is good in California on a Thursday night, I wonder.
I think he's about to find out over the next little bit.
It's just, he's like a superstar in weight. Obviously, as he said himself, a tiny bit of a scare tonight, but that's the sort of thing that'll bring him on, the sort of idea that especially when you come up against somebody of Hernandez's profile. Granted, his profile was at its peak probably 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
You can't take anything for granted in this game, and you know he got through it. And well, the scorecard suggests that he was a comfortable winner. I'm not sure does even Jason Quigley agree with that, but maybe the judges saw something that we didn't and that Jason himself didn't see. So a healthy win on paper. Yeah,
by all accounts, like 98, 92, 98, 92, 99, 91. By all accounts, reading even some of the Irish journalists scoring it was much tighter than that. But he clearly accepts himself that his fight probably didn't go exactly the way that he wanted to go, and not lucky enough to get through, but definitely more of a test, I think, than he would have expected. The shades are on. The shades being on at midnight is always a bit of a telltale sign, isn't it? Like whatever about sort of 8 o'clock the next morning when they're on that night, you know.
Well, I think if you're going out in LA, you kind of have to have the shades on. It's kind of like having... You can't wear runners into Dublin clubs, but in LA clubs you have to have a pair of sunglasses on if you want to get inside that door. So I think Jason Quigley is abiding by the dress code, if nothing else. What an entourage in that room, by the way.
He's out. Yeah, there seemed to be a good bit of kerfuffle in the background.
Yeah, and it's one hell of a weekend for Irish boxing as well. Of course, Boston tomorrow night. A couple of big fights from our perspective. So... Yeah, hopefully it long may it continue.
On that note, there is a new movie out. It's going to be launching in the next little while. It's all about Katie Taylor, and here's a Katie trailer.
Ireland's heroine and women's sporting icon.
Oh, that's a cracking right hand she has there.
Wow!
You're talking about the best female boxer that ever lived.
Katie Taylor is the champion of the Olympic Games.
You know, what's gone on with her life, that's something really I've talked about.
There wasn't a day where I didn't wake up thinking about the Olympics.
Women's boxing at the time wasn't even allowed in the country. I had to pretend to be a boy to get fights.
Pete was the sort of glue that held Katie together.
We're like best friends, to tell you the truth.
Rio Olympics around the corner and she was expected to win the gold medal again.
Can't wait for Katie to win gold for Ireland.
So only a few months out from the Olympics, the relationship between Katie and my dad started to become a bit more fractured.
My dad was no longer someone who I could work with, really.
The trust was broken.
No club, no coach, and getting ready for the Olympic Games.
She's beaten. Katie Taylor is beaten and out of the Olympic Games. Katie, give me your reaction.
It was just such a drop that it had to be something traumatic that happened to her.
The Katie Taylor that we've seen in the ring is not the same Katie Taylor I know.
Is there more in Katie Taylor?
I knew that wasn't the end of my career.
Katie Taylor has signed a professional contract.
She's still fighting to get recognition.
I believe she's not prepared for what is coming on Saturday.
Can she win a world title?
I'm gonna go all the way to the very top.
This is where we find out a lot about Katie Taylor. It's Katie Taylor!
Yeah, that's this day next week. Katie Taylor is live in your cinemas, and it's all about the movies this morning. Slappy, I'm afraid to touch Slappy's head because I fear that Slappy has had a gummy bear too many and may well sort of slide off the desk. Goosebumps 2 we discussed it a bit earlier in the show, is in your cinemas from tonight.
Yeah.
Hashtag Goosebumps 2 movie. And with thanks to Sony, I'm delighted to say that one of the main characters has joined us in studio this morning. Slappy, good morning to you.
He's had.
I think he really Slappy should have the shades on him this morning as well. I think.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I think Tommy came in and said Slappy's mic'd up, and I actually believed him. I was actually waiting for him to speak there. I'm not going to lie. Well, it's great. It's great to have you here, Slappy.
It's a career highlight for all of us, and Slappy's going to stay with us for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Right, you can get in contact with us if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any of that good stuff. Just leave a comment for us and drop it on the hashtag as well, OTB AM, and we'll bring you those comments over the next bit. We did have a comment from somebody here on, goddammit, Brian on Twitter says, well in, Jay, great fight, in reaction to our conversation with Jay Quigley there a little bit earlier on. We might go to Slappy on some of the newspapers just to get some reaction to some of these, some interesting stories, some news here about Kerry football and stuff like that. So just might see if there's anything interesting to say that. We're going to kick off with the Irish Independent this morning. And the back page here is dominated by, we mentioned Katie Taylor, her bout this weekend against Cindy Serrano. So that is happening in Boston this weekend. and the face-off at yesterday's press conference there. That's that fight at Fenway Park tomorrow night. Cullen could be forced into changes for the Toulouse trip. That's the news that Rob Kearney and Dan Levy could miss that Leinster game against Toulouse in the Heineken ChampionsCup this weekend. I mean, there's plenty of depth, and it might not be the greatest disaster given the depth and the quality of it that's there. We'll get Alan Quinlan's thoughts on that a bit later on. But Clifford's surgery adds to Keane's rough start is one of these stories across the back pages this morning, and it's full up front and centre on the back page of the Irish Independent. Michael Verney writing that David Clifford is set to miss the early rounds of the 2019 league. He's undergoing surgery and a troublesome shoulder injury.
Yeah. Shoulder injuries and Kerry football aren't two things that we like to hear at the moment. Obviously, James O'Donoghue struggled with a very similar injury. When I say similar, I mean in the general area. We don't know what the specific injury is a couple of years ago, and that's something that really hampered his progress. So you just got to hope that this isn't something that does something similar to David Clifford. Yeah. Again, we don't know the full extent of this. We do know that it requires surgery. We don't know what the exact type of injury is. Is it a collarbone? What sort of injury did he sustain? The thing is, it's not in a bad enough position that he can't play. Like, he's going to play this weekend in County Championship, and they're putting it off until the end of that. Unusual is right. So, I don't know. Like, that makes me a little bit more worried than if, say, this was kind of the James O'Donoghue situation where it was an out-and-out injury where he had to get taken off in a game against Tipperary in the Munster Championship and then went under the knife. David Clifford, this is might be one of these ongoing issues. Like, you speak to somebody who is a 35-year-old who's been around the senior ranks for 10-15 years, and they say, I've had this niggling problem, I must get it looked after now in the winter. This is not the sort of thing that a 19-year-old says. So that is the one reason why I'm very worried about what this is. And like we've said it all along, as soon as David Clifford made the decision to stay at home, there was always this worry that he was going to get pulled in all these different directions, and burnout would have been a huge possibility. And the situation is, like, I'm not sure if anybody can take me seriously while I'm having this conversation with Slappy. Slappy, I'm sure, understands how serious this matter is. But, like, you could say that, I can't keep a straight face here. You talk about serious injuries and you talk about GAA. It's not like this is a unique situation. Like, the first thing that I think is like, okay,
don't mind me.
The first thing I thought of this morning is that, Dublin wouldn't have a string of serious injuries like this, but like I can't, everyone's just laughing at me while I'm trying to make a very serious point here about injuries in the GAA. I'm saying that the best counties get bad injuries and that they've gone through big absences as well. Come on, like, do you want to just we move on to the next story. We can talk about GAA injuries. I wanted to make a serious point there.
Well, we don't back to that point. No, look, it's a fair thing. Listen, Slappy has really just put me off here. Look, it's a fair point, and I think the point that you make about him being a young fella and the potential that this extends, obviously, over the course of his career is really unfunny. And yeah, like, it's been reported that he's going to miss between 12 and 16 weeks to recover from this thing, as you say.
Well, the thing is, he's already an automatic, essential part of the Kerry cog. Yeah. There's no way, like, he's going to be their only All-Star this year. He's one of their only All-Star nominees, and getting him back for the championship now is just absolute top of the priority list. I do wonder, though, having said what I said, is there an element of, say, Peter Keane sitting down with David Clifford, County Board sitting down and saying, listen, next year is the most important year in Kerry GAA history since 1982. Because we need to stop
maybe if I sit back this way.
Yeah, I'm not even laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at Adrian, laughing at me.
Yeah, look, it's fair point. And also the position he plays, you would assume, is sort of more open to doing more damage to himself in that sort of way, you know? Like, it's pretty... you need to be pretty physical in the sort of position that he's playing. And obviously there'll be more of an onus on him, the likes of Donaghy not there, obviously, anymore, and Anthony Marr and these lads that, might have been known for some of the similar style of play. Yeah, like, you look at... There have been other players who've gone through, like, long absences in the Kerry squad. It's hard to actually pick somebody out who hasn't really had a big enough injury. Like, you talk about James O'Donoghue, you talk about David Moran as well, who did his cruciate. Obviously, totally different injuries, but they've kind of been around the block. They've come back to a very, very high level after going under the knife. But the hope here,
as I say, we don't know too much about the specific requirement for the surgery. The hope is that it's nothing too serious and that the surgery is just some sort of manner to prevent this from inflaming down the line in his career. And the player's welfare is at heart here, because this is a player we need for 15 years.
Absolutely. Take time to get it right. Don't be worried about the league. And if it comes to the championship and things aren't 100% right, don't be worried too much about that. He's a young fella, obviously, with a huge future ahead of him. That's the news and David Clifford there. Michael Verney reporting the Irish Independent this morning. In the Irish Examiner this morning, it's all about the rugby, the big weekend of rugby upcoming. 9 lives. Right, Ronan O'Gara on the 3 scrum halves who wouldn't lie down. He's sort of making the point that there's tended to be what he describes as a bit of an overreaction to some decent performances from some 9s at the weekend that maybe the vast majority of people hadn't expected, including obviously Duncan Williams, and so it's a big weekend. Nick McCarthy is on his way to Munster, and that's kind of the main talking point on the front page of the Examiner there this morning. Teak Tough Taylor, pressure brings out the best in me, says Katie. One interesting story that was inside. Sit down with Anthony Daly as well, by the way. I'll never let a day go past if the Anthony Daly features in the newspapers in an interesting way without mentioning it.
You do love Anthony Daly.
Listen, what is not to love?
I agree with you.
I don't feel as if I need to explain that.
You're definitely top of the fanboy list.
Yeah, 100%. Really cool photograph here from the baseball, I don't know, was it last night or the night before? Fan costs Astros victory is the story here, and you can see that, what's his name? The ball hit by Jose Altuve, and I can't find it. Mookie Betts is trying to catch the ball here. Only that it's either one of these two guys has just stopped him from doing it, and officials have ruled that they did stop him from doing it, and because of that, the Astros were beaten and the Red Sox won.
That's incredible.
Isn't it incredible? Like, stay away from the ball, you idiots.
And was that game on in Houston?
That was in Houston, Texas, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Stay away from the ball.
Some crowd screwing the ball.
Stay away from the ball. What are you doing? There's a player jumping trying to catch it. Stay away from it.
I totally missed that story. That's remarkable. Do you think if we had the opportunity to do that in our own sports, fans would take the opportunity to screw up a result here or there?
Yeah, see, I don't think the guy was thinking I was going to screw up the result. I probably wasn't thinking.
It's kind of like, oh wow, I'm going to get a ball to bring home. And lo and behold, you've cost your team. I'm hoping this following comment means something to you. It's Adam Porter on YouTube. Fever of Werewolf Swamp still scares the crap out of me. Well, that's one of the books, or like there was a TV show as well that based itself on the books. To be honest with you, I'd say I read about a dozen of them. But when you're a kid, if you read a dozen books, it's like an absolute body of work. So I don't think I read that one. Fever of Werewolf Swamp. It rings a bell, but I don't think I read that particular one. I'm beginning to doubt the mobile library at all. Oh no! The mobile library exists, Adrian. Okay, really? I won't have a word said against its existence. On the front page of the Irish Daily Mail, Beckham, my marriage to Posh is such hard work. It does feature in a lot of papers are carrying that this morning. It just caught my attention there, and I thought it's very important to mention it. That marriage is hard work. Well, that's what he meant. In general, he didn't mean Posh is hard work, which a lot of the tabloids seem to be going with. Any good reason to put Posh and Becks on the front pages, the story with that. Alexei's eyes exit is the story here that does feature a good bit across the back pages this morning. Alexis Sanchez wanting to end his Old Trafford misery, as it's described here. Like, essentially, Jose Mourinho's asked him to track back in a way that he's not mad about, and negative tactics is the other one that's come up here that we might talk a little bit more in detail to Kevin Kilbane about a little later in the show. Collins and Kelly primed for Battle of the Banner. That's the picture here of Podge Collins and O'Mahony. The best is yet to happen. The Munster skipper Peter O'Mahony believes that Munster's best is ahead of them. It certainly seems like Munster are back on in a big way. Munster have been back for a couple of years, but they're only going to be back this season if they want to win the Heineken ChampionsCup. Oh, there's back and back, is there? Of course there is, like Tiger Woods. All right. There's back and back to everything here. I would say that they were back when they before they got beaten by Saracens 2 years ago, and then last year they were back a little bit more after Andrew Conway ran in that amazing try in Thomond, and then obviously ended up losing to Racing. But they could be back this year if they end up going all the way and winning the thing. So I'm going to do something here. I'm not sure that this is going to result in Slappy remaining on the table. I hope it does in a lot of ways, but I just need to get you, because we've had a comment here on YouTube, I just need to try and get a shot. There we go. Slappy's haircut, right? Erwin Lane on YouTube. Is Slappy's fashion based on Owen or vice versa?
dun, dun, dun.
Make up your own
What
mind.
do you think, Owen?
Well, me and Slappy are good friends, aren't we, Slappy? I see. Oh, God, that's a limp arm there, Slappy. Jesus, not much power in that.
I think he's perched.
I fancy myself in an arm wrestle against Slappy, and I don't say that about anybody ever. But those arms do look fairly frail. He's an old man, Slappy. But
is he?
One of my best friends.
Sort of ageless. Thanks, Erwin Lane, for your comment there on YouTube. 8:15 this Friday morning. It is a little bit surreal, but we'll carry on regardless. The sports section of the Irish Times this morning is all about the rugby as well. Leinster evolution from Toulouse 2006 is still a wonder to Guy Easterby. Is the story here, reflecting on 12 years ago on a trip to France, and a fairly, at that point, outstanding outcome from that game. Leinster, it was a real landmark result for them in a way that this weekend just wouldn't be. And we'll talk to Alan Quinlan about that again. Informed Cipriani left out of the England squad meanwhile, and that's kind of really the main story from the Irish Times this morning.
Front page of the Herald sports section is a bridge over troubled water. Milan Mourinho returns to Chelsea for first battle with Sarri. I think Slappy here is Manchester United fantasy. He's got he's donning the red for the weekend that's in it. Munster and Manchester United. Manchester United leading the way as well on the back of the Irish Daily Star. Luara disgrace. Pallister slams Rom for disrespecting Reds. I'm not sure if Romelu Lukaku has actually disrespected Manchester United here. But he's been savaged by former Manchester United star Gary Pallister for disrespecting the club, says Jeremy Cross's piece here. So Lukaku claimed during the international break he hopes to play in Italy one day. He was asked about the possibility of a switch to Serie A, where his brother Jordan plays for Lazio, and he said, "Why not? I hope it happens." He didn't say when he was going to join a team in Serie A. He said, "One day I'd like to play in Italy." Now, who wouldn't want to move to Italy and craft and earn your craft in a beautiful country like that? Pallister though says it's disrespectful if you mention other clubs when you're contracted to the club you're at. If it's in your mind, I've got no problem with that. But to put it in print, I have got a problem with that.
Yeah,
like it is Gary Pallister telling Romelu Lukaku he can't. Like it is Eden Hazard disrespecting Chelsea by saying that he's dreamt of playing for Real Madrid.
Are they two slightly different things? It feels to me there's a little bit of nuance there that makes them slightly different things. I've a bit of time for Gary Pallister's criticism of Lukaku there, because ultimately we've heard this question asked a million times, and most of those times players would respond with, listen, very focused on the job at hand here. We're, trying to get out a bit of a sticky patch. Really want to make things happen. Believe in this club, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Why would I be thinking about going anywhere else? Clearly Juventus is a bloody good club, an amazing club. And who knows what happens? Lazio. No, was it not? No, it was Juventus.
Oh, sorry, you mentioned Juventus. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Who knows what happens down the track? But at the minute, I'm very dialed into what's happening here. That's the way to respond to it. Really. I know we sort of criticise sports people for responding in that way, but that kind of is the way to respond to it, rather than what he's done, which actually almost to me feels a bit like a come and get me.
Really?
Yeah, it's definitely more than, good club, but happy where I am.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I think he's asked about this. He's spoken about the fact that his brother's down there, and he's kind of mentions the idea that, he speaks about his admiration for Juventus. Now, I don't know what the question was, but the fact of the matter is that United are playing Juventus in the Champions League very shortly. That could have been great club.
So many reasons just to bat that one back.
No respect, says the back page of the Mirror this morning. Pallister defies backlash to put boot into Lukaku over his Serie A comment. So it's the same story there, basically. Yeah. We're in the same race with a different vehicle, says Maurizio Pochettino. Kind of Photoshop there at the back. You can kind of see that on the top of the back page of the Mirror. He says they're ready to keep pace in the title race, even if they're lining up in an inferior car. It's probably a good analogy, But he is suggesting, if an inferior car is going to beat a superior car, you've got to have an excellent driver. And who's the driver of that car? Well, it's Maurizio Pochettino. I think that's some self-love there.
It is.
Poch.
And also, he's on the newspaper are extending out the analogy to put him in a sort of Del Boy style three-wheeler. And he ain't in a Del Boy style three-wheeler, let's face it. We're talking about the margins between his car and the best cars in the race is not really not huge.
No, it's
not like he's in a different sort of engine category here.
Spurs are a Ferrari and Manchester City are a Bugatti.
Yeah,
I think that's probably where it's at. Back page of the Sun is Shaw thing. Luke signs 5-year deal and not sure. De Gea long-term future in doubt. So more Manchester United there leading the way here. Chelsea can wait no more. An exclusive from Duncan Wright. They finally lost patience with Alvaro Morata and are going to sign a striker in January. Mauro Icardi is thought to be top of their wish list. And also here at the top of the Sun, Robbie Keane is being linked with a job in the FAI. He's wanted. They've had conversations and he's got a desire to go into coaching and management in the near future. So the FAI have spoken to him about taking on a potential coaching position in the future. It doesn't say what the specifics are. It doesn't say whether or not there's been an actual approach made, but the FAI and Robbie Keane have engaged in discussion about coaching one day.
Yeah, it's not that surprising, is it? Like, I think that if there's any kind of relationship there, it's probably something that the FAI should be doing more of, that when he retires, listen, we'll keep in contact, we'll drop you the odd call, see what you're up to. If there's an opportunity to come and get involved, why would you not? Like, Robbie Keane has always said that he wants to become a manager as well, by the way.
Yeah.
He hasn't fully retired yet, though, has he?
No, like, the idea of Robbie Keane going straight into the FAI, I'm not sure is that an appealing thing for someone like Robbie Keane. When you've got such a high profile abroad, and you've got such a high profile as a fantastic club player in the Premier League, then why would you go straight in with the international setup? Maybe to earn your crust.
Well,
but earning your crust with an academy maybe in a club.
Is that
yeah.
So why does exactly? Why doesn't he go and do it? He could easily do it at a Premier League club or an Italian club, and not even that, but just from the point of view of learning your trade. Like, I think that, you know, it'll be a long career for him.
Yeah, it will. But like, is the FAI really the place, like the Republic of Ireland set up at any level? Is that the place where you want to start your coaching learnings?
Well, I don't know. If you were working with some of the underage teams, it might well be, but I would think that given the facilities and setups and finances that are involved, I mean, I'm not talking about his salary, but that are involved with a lot of the academies, particularly in the Premier League, like the facilities that are in place over there must be second to none. You would think that, like you're saying, he's got enough of a profile to be able to call some of these clubs and go, here, listen, I'm on the lookout. If something comes up, I'd be interested in coming in. And, oh, by the way, from the club's point of view, like, here's a guy who scored the number of goals that he scored at the highest level of the game. I think I can easily see it's not like you're not taking a punt on him.
No, it's true. He'll be like, do they have things like forwards coaches in the Premier League at the moment? I'm sure they have people who take specific elements of that, but you do worse than being kind of thought to trade of being a fox in the box, so to speak, in the Premier League. Although that is not what I'm calling Robbie Keane, because that would be an unfair assessment of his
like if he's kicking about, and like we saw him in the Liam Miller tribute game, let's face it, he had a little bit of timber on him. If he's kicking about, not doing very much, like, bring him in, get him involved in the international matches.
Yeah, definitely. Like why not?
International setup.
Why not?
I can score goals. Our greatest goal scorer of all time. Like, here, well, you doing anything for the next few weeks? Trying to come in and show these boys how to score goals.
Particularly now, there seems to be an even more sepia-toned version of Robbie Keane's career. It was already amazing, but now we're even more appreciative of what he did because of the current struggles.
I think history will be kind to him, right, in a way that it probably wasn't when he bowed out, particularly the international scene, that he, like, some people were conflicted about him. Not everybody thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, definitely.
But history will be good to him. That's a lot of goals.
It is a lot of goals, and they're a lot harder to score. Like, it was kind of turning those, say, a Denmark team without Christian Eriksen, or maybe a Wales team without Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale. Those sort of mediocre teams, we'd be putting them away with Robbie Keane in our team.
Are we back to your you just need one player to make a team theory?
In international football, it goes a long way. The Racing Post is Sheffield Steel. Gritty Owls can extend unbeaten home sequence. They're up against Middlesbrough tonight in the Championship. And the front page of the Telegraph sports section, they've kind of got a special supplement today. Time for action. The Telegraph today launches a manifesto to save grassroots football as leading figures voice fears over failure of the game. So it's not just the Irish football press who are a little bit worried with their grassroots football setup. It's also in England. Their 6-point manifesto is an independent commission to look at football's grassroots, their funding and future. I won't go through all of them, but one of the things is that the commission to decide whether the Premier League should give 5% of all income to grassroots football, excluding the Football League. I think that's a fair proposal there from the Telegraph. So there's some good stuff in that supplement this morning.
Want to take a quick look at the Irish news, which we can put up on the screen for you now. This is Oisin and Rian O'Neill going to be key for Crossmaglen and Armagh over the next decade, according to Joe Kernan, the All-Ireland winning manager, backing the O'Neill brothers to drive Cross and Armagh to new heights over the next decade. They've impressed, the article says, in their run to Sunday's final against Ballymacnab.
There's also a story in AS this morning. Neymar is potentially on the move back to Spain. He's spoken about his interest to either Madrid or Barcelona, wearing his LeBron James jersey there. So it will be the least surprising thing ever if Neymar does go back to Spain next year. The thing is, he'll probably go for over €200 million next summer. If he waits until 2020, and it wouldn't be him waiting, if Barcelona or Real Madrid wait until 2020, they can get him for less than €200 million. It's amazing how that's the sort of level of bargain in this day and age, but that's the situation with Neymar. Real Madrid, I would say, would make things very interesting. Let's start a pot nicely in La Liga were he to play for them.
A couple of people on YouTube, including Connor Lynch, thinking that Slappy looks a little bit like Quinny.
Well, I don't really see it myself, to be honest. Do you think so?
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying a couple of people on YouTube. That's exactly what they're thinking. And Owen's very quiet today, says Michael Curtin on YouTube.
Very quiet?
Yeah.
Why would he say that?
Well, I think he's...
God, I am slow this morning. That is yeah, good work.
One flat wide for Owen coming up. Also coming up is Kevin Kilbane in just a couple of moments' time. But the Keith Andrews Show, as you well know at this stage, is live every Thursday from 12:30 across all the Off the Ball channels. Here he is on yesterday's show. He's chronicling the unravelling of Martin O'Neill's time in charge of the Irish football team.
I don't go on rants. I think I'm quite calculated in the way I approach things, and I'm realistic in terms of what we can achieve. If anybody just sees the other night will say, oh well, I'm going off one, but I wasn't going off one. I just had enough about where we're going and how we're trying to get there, because it should be better.
So it's the last 12 months that has turned you in particular?
Okay. Last 12 months have been shocking. Like
last 12 months has been kicked off by the Stoke debacle as well. Is that part of your issue?
Yeah, I think so. I think the obviously the Denmark second so
that's our 12 months
playoff,
really. Yeah.
and then the kind of doom and gloom all over the Christmas period. Then January comes up, Stoke decide to make a managerial change with Mark Hughes, Martin O'Neill gets linked, and the way that was dealt with probably didn't sit particularly well with me. And I said at the time, if I was a player in that position, I wouldn't be too impressed, because I'm hurting going to be looking at a World Cup with the team that you just smashed, you're going to be playing it, and your manager's flirting with the idea of maybe pressing the eject button, whereas obviously you're wanting a little bit of togetherness. But even the way that was dealt with wasn't particularly great. A few meaningless friendlies, maybe. The only highlight was Declan Rice really in and around March and the summer, the performances. And if we have everybody fit, we have him as a player coming in, and all right, you're clutching at straws to a degree in terms of what we're doing going forward and how we can be positive about this. But it's just unravelled.
Yeah, that is Keith Andrews defending his position on the Republic of Ireland manager Martin O'Neill. His stance on that over the last few weeks. Kevin Kilbane, I mean, I don't believe it, but I'll believe it when I see it. Come on in.
Why wouldn't you believe it? What's the matter with you?
Is that you, Kev?
Jesus Christ.
Is that Kevin Kilbane? Is that the Kevin Kilbane on?
There's your Slappy comparison.
Woof.
No, it's not. I actually thought there was 3 gingers sat in studio there. It's the lighting that was flying on his head there. We were having a ginger fest again.
That's impossible, Kev. 3 gingers have never existed in the same room together.
No, it's probably true.
Listen, Kevin, we're delighted to just see you and be able to talk to you. So thanks a million for taking the time out for us.
I'm delighted to be invited on, actually, Adrian. It's very kind of you.
Right, we've now that the insults have been traded and they're out of the way, it's coming up on 8:30 on this Friday morning. Get your comments in for Kev over the next, I think he's graced us with 10 minutes or thereabouts, so get your comments in for him on the hashtag OTB AM, and we'll bring them to Kev before we jump out of town here shortly. One story that we wanted to kick out, Chelsea United is the big game of the weekend, and we're going to get your thoughts on that in just a couple of moments time, but I mean, I know that you've almost fully withdrawn from Off the Ball by the fact that you don't even have your Off the Ball mug anymore. One story that we wanted to get your...
Do you know what? I actually don't have one. I don't have one at the moment.
What happened to it?
Cracked.
Did you give it away? Give it away to a friend?
No, actually, I didn't know.
One story that we wanted to get your thoughts on here to kick things off on the back page of the Sun this morning is FAI are keen on Robbie. Look, we were just discussing it. It doesn't seem like a great surprise that the FAI have kept in contact with Robbie Keane since he's retired from international duty, and that he might be, writes Owen Cowser, in line for some sort of a coaching job there at some point soon. I mean, it seems inevitable that he is going to go into coaching, Kev, at some point pretty quickly, you would think.
Yeah, I think the problem would be for Robbie's which level, dilemma, I suppose you would say, be a better phrase, which level he's going to go into. Would he go in at one of our junior sides? Would he go in at 21s? Would he go in at senior level? I think the way that it's looking at senior level at the moment, you're probably looking at someone like Robbie Keane and how vital he would be to a senior management staff. That's the way that I would probably look at it. It just depends on where he wants to go, Adrian. I don't know. I don't really know what he wants at the moment. I know that he's done his badges. He definitely sees his next career step into coaching. And hopefully it will be within our setup, because we could do with him. I think it's clear to see at the moment. I'm
banning any talk about the current setup in any great deep way, but the only other thing I wanted to ask you about was, we were also discussing it here, what about getting Keane involved now from in that current setup? Like, one of the things we can't do at the minute is score goals. I don't know what he's doing with his life at the minute, but how about getting him involved now?
Yeah, I wouldn't be against that myself. I mean, I've heard Gary on and other lads that have, they've coached for a number of years at various levels, but why not get him involved? Why not help him? Why not get him helping the rest of the lads, and so they can then hopefully learning from him? I think it's just because you're a good player doesn't necessarily come across as you being a good coach. And how are you going to be able to pass on any sort of knowledge? We're not necessarily saying that Robbie is going to make a Shane Long or Sean Maguire a Robbie Keane overnight. That's not the case. But just little nuggets of information that he can give to them about how he gets his information across, maybe to me, his teammates, or whatever it would be when I used to play alongside him. That sort of thing could be vital, I think, just for little things that do happen on the pitch. I'd feel it would be a great move. It just depends on how much coaching time he would actually get if he were to join the senior management setup right now. That would be the thing. He might not necessarily get a lot of time with the players.
Well, that's the thing, really, isn't it? It's the level of coaching. If you really love coaching, Kev, I'm not sure is this fair to say, but if you really love that, then is a senior international role the place for you, whereas the club, the day-to-day element of actually getting into the nitty-gritty of seeing improvement in your squad, that's where you get fulfilment, really, isn't it? It's the club game.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. But why not do both?
Yeah,
I'm sure he could do both. And I can't see that being a problem. Now, whether that would be within the League of Ireland setup, whether that would be over in England, where there would be many a club that would want to take him over there as well. He could. I personally think if he was going to stay in Ireland, if that would be his choice going forward, he could get involved within the League of Ireland setup without a problem at all. Damien Duff's doing it now, not a problem. And you can learn the fundamentals. You can learn how to project your voice, how you're going to get your knowledge across to players. All these little things can come about at any level of football. That is the thing that Robbie would probably need, I think, right now.
Yeah, all right. That was the story that Owen Cowser writing in the Sun this morning about that interesting weekend of football, Kev. I saw somebody writing the football is back. Paul Howard on Twitter writing the football is back this weekend, which is a happy release for all of us. Chelsea United.
A bit of sarcasm there, Adrian. No.
Chelsea United tomorrow 12:30 is the probably the most interesting game of the weekend.
Yeah.
United obviously 8th in the table, 3 wins from the last 8 games. Nobody knows where this thing is going with Jose Mourinho, but you suspect a trip to Chelsea in the lunchtime start tomorrow. If there's a kick left in the old dog, this is where it comes out.
Well, do you know what? I've looked at it over the last day or so, Adrian. They almost have to win this game. The 7 points now behind Chelsea. If they lose it, of course, then you go 10 points behind. You can fairly or pretty much write the Premier League title off for them this season again, can't you? They have to win it to maintain pace. And in fairness, looking at it, Chelsea unbeaten this season, I cannot see it. The form that Hazard's in, I don't know. I don't see it this weekend. I really can't. You say if Mourinho's had ways of getting great results against some of the better teams over the years. I remember he did it to Chelsea a couple of years ago when Chelsea were going for the league, that man-marking job he did on Hazard. Could he stop Hazard again? I think he's had a way of stopping Hazard whichever game he's played in the last couple of years. He's had a great way of stopping him, and maybe whether that be Ander Herrera that will be deployed again, that will be to do that job because he's had a history of doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that. But as I said before, I think Chelsea have got a little bit too much for United. I think the way that they're playing, joint top of the Premier League, unbeaten this season, I think they've got too much. I think United could be come 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. I think they're out of the Premier League title race.
How much do you read into the new Luke Shaw contract, Kev? Because it would seem that this was an impossible situation. I think Luke Shaw himself said it was impossible to see himself staying at Manchester United beyond last season even. Is this sort of a reversal from Jose Mourinho, a sort of removal from the stubbornness that we're often used to seeing from Jose?
Yeah, it's been interesting listening to Luke Shaw this season, talking about his relationship with Mourinho and what Mourinho has been saying to him internally. It's the message that coming out over the last couple of years clearly has been quite negative towards him, and we've all looked at it as an outsider looking in, going, look, maybe that sort of comment needs to be kept in house. He might need to be saying that to him to get him going. But from what Luke Shaw's saying the relationship has been totally fine throughout. He's been quite happy with what Mourinho's been saying to him. Mourinho's problem with Luke Shaw has been he feels as though he actually should have been a bit more attacking. He's not playing his more natural game. Quite surprising, I think, when I heard it at the start of the season. But I think he's been United's best player. Clearly, he's been United's best player. I've seen them, 3 times, I think, up there live and up close this season. And he has been the best player in every game that I've seen. Every game I've seen on the telly, he's been the best one. So it's understandable. I think we probably expect him to be in this position a lot quicker. The injuries that he's had, the issues that he's had, I suppose, as well, have hindered him. But he deserves it. He simply does deserve it. He's United's best left-back. And on current form, he's probably as good as anyone in the Premier League.
On Mourinho, Kev, what's your thinking here? Like the Newcastle game obviously happens, and in that game they're 2-0 down. He makes a couple of substitutions. He makes some tactical switches, almost sort of a last throw of the dice. And maybe there's a freedom about that. Listen, I've just got to go and do this thing now, and it works for him. Is that something he can sort of continue to plug into now? That kind of freedom of, like, by all accounts, he is facing the sack pretty soon. Like, no matter if those reports are true or not, that has to be a thing given where they're at in the table. So, like, is he freed up almost by that now? And is that, I mean, I don't know if I'm sort of grasping at straws here, but is that the thing that frees him up, that allows him to help turn this thing around?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. But do you know what, Adrian? United have been at the best over the last year or so when he's actually had to let the shackles off a little bit and let the team go and play. Did it against Man City last season, where they were outstanding in the second half at the Etihad. There has to come a little bit of, Mourinho getting his fundamentals right, which he's done throughout his career. That's what any coach does. That's what any manager would do with his side. Defensive unit right, stop teams scoring against you. But there has to come a way to get all this attacking talent that he's got within his side into games and get them playing for the side. And I've just not seen it. I've just not seen it enough coming from them. And it's not against at times. It's not in this type of game. This Chelsea game where you say, is this the game that Mourinho can finally, get something back and get beat one of the top sides and get his season on track? It's never been this type of game with Mourinho. It's been against, Newcastle or whoever it would be, where they've seriously struggled and they've not been able to break sides down that have sat deep against him. He has to find ways to do that. And that's almost as if to say, I'd feel at times to say, well, look, I tell you what, just go and express themselves. Rather than, if you ever watch Mourinho when he's on his touchline, Mourinho is constantly screaming. If I'm using Rashford as a reference here, Rashford would be on the left-hand side of midfield or left wing. He'd be constantly cajoling Rashford to try to get back into certain positions, which, it's great. But when he's playing against the lesser teams, you've got to say I would personally say to someone like Marcus Rashford, go on, you've got enough stability behind you. You have Matic that will always be sitting deep. We're never going to have an overload against us. Stay high, get in positions where you're going to affect a game. And I don't think that Mourinho's done that enough through his time at United to go and let the attacking players go and play with freedom.
That's Chelsea United. It's probably the biggest game of the weekend tomorrow at 12:30. We've City Burnley tomorrow at 3. West Ham Spurs. Kev, quick word on those tomorrow at 3 o'clock as well. Christian Eriksen possibly back. From a Spurs point of view, they've a bloody busy schedule upcoming. PSV in the Champions League next week. City at Wembley the following Monday. And I know Pochettino's in some of the back pages today talking about potentially strengthening in the January window. West Ham have been good against good teams this season.
Yeah, they've only lost one in the last 5 games. Arnautovic again amongst the goals for Austria this week. What's he on 4? I think he's on 4 goals this season himself. He's the key for them. If Arnautovic isn't fit for West Ham, they look 50% of the side that they actually can be. So Arnautovic is a key player for them. I think everybody would know that. I've been impressed. I have been impressed with them watching West Ham. They were quite poor against Brighton last time out, but as I said, that one defeat in 5. During that, I saw them play at Goodison Park, absolutely outstanding. I saw them play at home to United, where they were just brilliant. The style of play was excellent, well organised, disciplined, but also how they countered against those teams. So I think there's to be a tough game for Tottenham. Tottenham themselves. I think it was interesting watching England this week, seeing Harry Winks come into the game against Spain, how well he played. Eric Dyer, I think it was the best I've seen Eric Dyer play, and that's out of any performance that I've seen him play for Tottenham or England. I thought he was absolutely brilliant in that Spain game, given how poor he was against Croatia last weekend. So he's certainly come into the game confidence. And Harry Kane, so much said about him and how poor he's been or how lethargic he's looked this season. 6 goals this season, it's not a bad return, given that people are saying he's not been in the best of form. And those 3... Well, I suppose not necessarily 3 assists against Spain, but he was involved in every one of those goals against Spain. He was simply outstanding. So I think certainly from the top perspective regarding England, I think 3 of those players come back full of form.
Yeah, that's that West Ham Spurs Saturday 3 o'clock. The late game tomorrow, Huddersfield Liverpool, and then on Sunday it's Everton Palace. Kev, I think you're not there for us, but I think you're going to. You're at that game.
Yeah, I've got match today too on Sunday, Adrian. Yeah, so.
Who's the star name they have alongside you?
I don't know actually.
Mark Chapman.
I've not been told that. Yeah, Chappers is alongside me. Yeah, I don't know. We hopefully. I mean, I would have thought we'd probably get Marco Silva on with us. I would have thought he'd come on and do a little bit. You normally get a manager. When I was down at Cardiff a couple of weeks ago, we had Sean Dyche. He came on as Burnley beat Cardiff that day, and we also had Joe Hart. So hopefully we'll get a current player and probably one or both managers, I would think, as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Actually, I think it'd be a good game.
Where people really need to be tuned on Sunday from it'll be about 3:30 when the match build-up begins. Will be to Off the Ball and News Talk, Ev, as I'm sure you'll endorse.
I'm sure, yeah. Johnny Walters.
Well, no, I was going to talk about Nathan Murphy, but yes, John Walters will be alongside Nathan.
Well, I'll tell you one thing now. The worst thing about it is for Johnny Walters, his first commentary on Off the Ball is alongside Nathan. Could we not have sorted McIntyre out from this weekend so he could come back and do a little bit more?
That could be an ecumenical matter. So John Walters, that's the place to be. This Sunday on.
There's one last thing I wanted to just get your take on, Kev, because we got a big reaction to it yesterday. I'm not sure did you see it. It was Daniel Harris talking about England football fans and their kind of behaviour abroad, which we've seen, of course, getting worse and worse over the last couple of years. I guess very briefly, do you think that we're at the nadir of English football culture at the moment, and will it permeate into the club scene in the Premier League?
It's always going to be there. I think a lot of from what I've seen, if you're looking at it from banners and things like that, a lot of the big clubs in England, the Premier League clubs, are not necessarily represented. That's the way that I would think. A lot of the clubs are represented are lower league English clubs. When or if this violence that we've seen over the years has taken place, so. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to continue. And I think it's going to continue along for a number of years. That's just the way that it is. It's ingrained in the culture in certain people, in certain clubs, and certainly in English circles. So I can't see that. I can't see this being a thing that would go away overnight. I don't think that'll be the case. No.
Gavin Cassidy, just before we let you off briefly, Kev, wondering if you'd ever help coach the Irish team on Facebook.
I don't know. I think I maybe would have done 3 or 4 years ago. I think that would have been the case. I don't think. I'm actually delighted at getting up at 8:15 in the morning to come on here with you right now, Adrian. So no, I don't think that's.
I mean, the one thing you would have in your favour is your capacity to bullshit is good. You've got good bullshit game, Kev.
Do you know what? It's 8:45, Adrian. Using language like that is not good. That's
not good. I'm offended.
It's on digital, Kev. You can do what you want. It's fine.
Can we get an apology on air from you?
Yeah, please.
Absolutely. I sincerely apologise to absolutely no one.
I'm insulted. From that attack that you've just actually put against me. I just think it's disgraceful, honestly.
Kev, we leave you on that note. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, good lads. All the best. Take it easy, boys.
Thanks a lot. Kevin Kilbane there on the line from Kevin Kilbane's kitchen, I think.
God, you're so brash, Adrian. So brash. You're such a... God, you've really kind of bought into the lad culture that exists around the world, haven't you? I feel like I'm going to get... I feel like I'm going to drown in your masculinity this morning.
We're going to be talking Katie Taylor very shortly with the maker of that movie, the trailer that we showed you a bit earlier on, Ross Whitaker. was in conversation with Owen a little bit earlier in the week, so we're going to bring you that way your way shortly. Alan Quinlan is going to be in studio to preview the weekend's Heineken ChampionsCup action, and Darren Cleary is standing by to bring us up to speed as well with all the very latest in happenings in the world of live sport. That is next. Keep your comments coming into us. Neil Cotter popped into studio yesterday. He chatted to Nathan about his new book, Dublin, The Chaos Years, how the Dubs made a mess of things for so long and how they turned it around. Have a look.
Well, the redevelopment of Parnell Park as well, he secured, I think, $500,000 from the state coffers as well for that, and he even says in the book that he still has the spade from the groundbreaking and keeps it out in his shed. Every time he goes out to do the garden, he has to decide, oh, better not use that spade. But he also got them the money for the floodlights then as well for Parnell Park, which before the redevelopment, it wasn't fit for purpose, basically. So Bertie was heavily involved in redevelopment of Parnell Park, and he was also a central character in this professionalisation of the coaching structures across the city as well. So again, another fellow who's much maligned, but he, as one player said to me, he says Dublin GA would be dead if Bertie hadn't got involved.
And private money then coming into Dublin, was it around that time as well that they sought private investment? I know at one stage that the Dublin players had a name, the Taliban, for certain figures that would arrive into training.
Yeah, Tommy Lyons was another good guy who was good at raising money as well. Now Pat Gilroy would take that on to new levels, but Lyons started that whole thing. It wasn't really Tommy Carr's thing, but Lyons had a few businessmen who were willing to put their hands in their pockets. And,
so that was just for training camps, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's sort of whatever Dublin needed. Dublin were always well funded, to be fair. But I think the money, it's two separate things, that, you know, the commercial revenue and the fundraising, and then you've got the coaching for the schools. And people sometimes confuse that as the same thing.
Darren Cleary, do you even remember the chaos years?
I do remember the chaos years. I remember leaving Croke Park after Cork and just being crushed because we'd thrown the game away. We didn't lose it. It felt like we gave away the win. I remember the bad years. I remember when, like, Leinster celebrations felt good.
Neil on the show last night was talking about being on the hill and just being bored by another Dublin win in Leinster particularly.
It has got boring, and I do think I remember walking up Jones's Road after the All-Ireland semi-final this year and just feeling, obviously that game never really took off. It looked like it might have been a game for 20 minutes and then Dublin steamrolled it as they tend to do, and it just, the buzz does wear off. When you look back on it, you remember all the good times you had of celebrating with friends and family and how much it meant to have football to look forward to that was meaningful in September. But at the same time, nothing will top 2011. 2011 was the first one that I properly remember in my lifetime. I don't remember 95, but 2011 was just this glorious week-long celebration where it felt like, okay, it's happened and it will probably never happen again, so we will enjoy this like it will never happen again. And it's just hard to do that every year over the last few years. Yeah. Try and enjoy it like it'll never happen again.
That's enough of that, Darren. I'm afraid, from Westmeath man and a Kerry man who are in equal sort of barren years.
Equally bored.
I'm not as bored as you guys are, but I'm pretty bored. I'm just glad I got my chair back. I thought Slappy was going to be here for the day.
Unbore us, Darren. What have you got for us?
Richard Dunn has joined a growing list of former Republic of Ireland internationals calling for Martin O'Neill to be axed today. Both Keith Andrews and John Giles told Off the Ball yesterday that the time was right in Irish football for a change. The defeat to Wales left the boys in green in danger of relegation in the Nations League. O'Neill has gone 5 competitive games now without a win, the worst run for the country since 2007. He's also joined Steve Staunton with the lowest win ratio of any manager in the last 30 years. That's 35% win ratio from 53 games. Staunton had 35% from 17 games. In today's Herald, the former defender says a new voice is needed now. He believes the players have had it with O'Neill and that if he remains in situ, things will only get worse. Here at home, Dundalk will get their hands on the ultimate prize in Irish football later. The SSE Airtricity League champions will be presented with the trophy. Sligo Rovers visit Oriel Park. Derry City's final home game of the season sees them entertain a Cork City side, fine-tuning preparations for the FAI Cup final. Bohemians make the trip to the seaside to face Bray Wanderers. Limerick entertain St Pat's. Then at 8, Shamrock Rovers welcome Waterford to the Tallaght Stadium. In rugby, Munster could name an unchanged side for tomorrow's Heineken ChampionsCup clash with Gloucester at Thomond Park. They will have to plan man without the injured pair of Conor Murray and Keith Earlsdoe. Munster fought back to claim a 10-all draw against Exeter Chiefs at Sandy Park last weekend. Gloucester made a winning return to Europe with a 19-14 victory over the French champions Castres. This fixture has elicited many memories of the miracle match of 2003. Munster had to beat Gloucester at that time by 4 clear tries and a minimum of 27 points to advance beyond the pool stages of that competition. They won by exactly 4 tries and 27 points, scoring their 4th in the 80th minute, and the head coach Johan van Gran has been doing some history homework.
Yeah, a few people have shown me. I've dug in a bit on YouTube to look at, I think they call it the miracle match. 2 brilliant clubs in Europe. They've both got a rich history, so I'm sure it will be the same this weekend again with Munster and Ulster. And you want to play in these games, and you want to be part of this competition.
Rob Kearney, Cian Healy doubts for Leinster's trip to Toulouse on Sunday. The fullback suffering from a tight quad, we understand. Healy's a badly bruised knee. Jamison Gibson Park rolled his ankle, but is hopeful he will be fit in time. Dan Levy nursing a calf injury at the moment as well. While Ireland have taken a 3rd gold medal at the Youth Olympic Games, Sean McCarthy celebrating. He won bronze in the men's Kumite 68 kg semi-finals in the karate. Boxer Dervla Rooney won bronze earlier this week. Swimmer Niamh Coyne took the silver medal in the 100 metres breaststroke. While in golf, Padraig Harrington and Gavin Moynihan need to complete their first rounds at the Andalusia Masters in Valderrama this morning. Both men level par following a first day in Spain that the rain wreaked some havoc with. Ashley Chesters did finish. He leads the field on 5 under. Shane Lowry also managed to get his round off. He's nicely placed on 2 under par, an opening 69, which he was pleased with.
One of the toughest golf courses we play, so look, I'm very happy with 69. So look, yeah, that's all I can say really. I'm just happy. It's been a long, tough day, and I was managed to make a couple of birdies in the end. Like the 5th hole here is probably one of the easier holes on the course, so to go out and hit a decent tee shot and take advantage of it and hit a wedge in pretty close, and I was disappointed the bogey 6, but then I got that back on 8, and it's just it was nice. I gave the birdie putt a good run on the last, but especially a day that can be interrupted, you can go back out and you can feel a bit off, and I felt good out there today.
Finally, one of the biggest names in sport, Lebron James, endured a disappointing Lakers debut. They lost to the Portland Trail Blazers, playing in his first regular season game since leaving hometown team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, for the 2nd time this summer. The 3-time NBA champion scored 26 points, the 2nd most by a Lakers debutant, but it was not enough to prevent the Lakers going down by 128 to 119.
Thanks, Darren. A few comments coming in. Neil Keegan says, Slappy looks like he doesn't believe a word you're saying, lads. No, Slappy's left us. Darren, this is Darren.
I was just saying before we came on air that they took the wrong wooden presenter home because they've left Owen.
Yeah, it's true. They did. I should have been put in the box. I'm a character in a new Universal film.
Darren O'Toole on YouTube says, pretty sure that 3 gingers, in brackets nightwalkers, in the same room precede the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah, no, he's dead right in that.
OTB AM.
It's like as rare as seeing a centaur.
Darren's ginger beard, does that qualify you?
Well, we're probably 2.5 gingers.
You're kind of a wannabe, really.
Yeah.
Erwin Lane, who'd been in contact earlier on to say that giving you a bit of abuse, but your similar fashion sense to Slappy, says, I'm only rising you on, loving the show, lads. Keep me in the loop about what's happening on the pitch at home. From local GA to international matches, sound out.
The thing is, the only thing he's rising is my sense of ego, because Slappy's a very well-dressed man.
He's dapper, I'd say.
Dapper,
lovely pair of shoes on him. I don't know if people picked that up.
Pair of shoes, so please don't revoke that comment.
Cracking pair of shoes.
We need to get a picture of Owen from the IMRO Wars, because then he was really dressed like Slappy. You could put them side by side, you wouldn't tell the difference. They both have the red dicky bow.
Dara was also back in touch to say, Adrian Barry, SJW, which you don't need to Google it, we've done that already. It means Social Justice Warrior.
Well, you are an SJW, really.
Adrian Barry, SJW and lad, all at the same time, truly a man of the times.
Yeah, I know. You kind of go from, being brash and chauvinistic to being an SJW. It's kind of the left and right wing tendencies of Adrian Barry.
People are complicated on it, turns out.
It is, yeah. It's not everything is black and white. You are the walking embodiment of nuance.
Alan Quinlan's in studio just after 9 o'clock. He's going to look ahead to round 2 of the Heineken ChampionsCup, so that's all coming your way. Right now, though, we're delighted to bring you this piece next. Director Ross Whitaker joined on in studio to chat about his brilliant new documentary, Katie. Take a look.
Ireland's heroine and women's sporting icon.
Oh, that's a cracking right hand he has there. Wow!
You're talking about the best female boxer that ever lived.
What's gone on with her life, that's something really I've talked about.
There wasn't a day where I didn't wake up thinking about the Olympics. Women's boxing at the time wasn't even allowed in the country. I had to pretend to be a boy to get fights.
Pete was the sort of glue that held Katie together.
We're like best friends, to tell you the truth.
Rio Olympics around the corner and she was expected to win the gold medal again.
Can't wait for Katie to win gold for Ireland.
So only a few months out from the Olympics, the relationship between Katie and my dad started to become a bit more fractured.
My dad was no longer someone who I could work with, really.
The trust was broken.
No club, no coach, and getting ready for the Olympic Games.
She's beaten. Katie Taylor is beaten and out of the Olympic Games. Katie, give me your reaction.
It was just such a drop that it had to be something traumatic that happened to her.
The Katie Taylor that we've seen in the ring is not the same Katie Taylor I know.
Is there more in Katie Taylor?
I knew that wasn't the end of my career.
Katie Taylor has signed a professional contract.
She's still fighting to get recognition.
I believe she's not prepared for what is coming on Saturday.
Can she win a world title?
I'm gonna go all the way to the very top.
This is where we find out a lot about Katie Taylor. It's Katie!
Yeah, that is the trailer for Katie. It's out next Friday in cinemas, and I'm delighted to say the director of Katie, Ross Whitaker, joins me in studio. Ross, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
How does it feel watching that? It's some body of work you put in, and I guess it gets all compressed into that 2-minute package there for promotional purposes.
Yeah, we were just looking at the trailer on your screen here, and it's, I was just saying to you, like, it's actually it's mad to watch it. You get so emotionally invested when you make these films, and especially with someone like Katie, who's kind of such an interesting person, but like, I suppose she's just such a compelling person, and you just get really emotionally invested in telling the story. And then when it's finished, it's kind of like this release. And it's kind of a bizarre feeling to be putting it out into the world then for other people to watch, because it's been amongst yourselves, either with filming with Katie or working with the editor, Andrew Hearn, and the other members of our team. And then you come to this moment and you're like, it flies, or you hope it does. So it's kind of an odd time, an odd experience to be at this stage.
You mentioned the emotion that goes into this and the attachment with Katie throughout this. Explain to us when you started this project, and pitching it to Katie, I'd imagine, wasn't exactly the easiest task, because as we can see from the movie, she's not exactly a person who likes to kind of tell her story to the world. She doesn't like preach from the mountaintop too much, unlike a lot of boxers.
Yeah, and I suppose that's always been a part of boxing is, we've started using this term trash talk more recently, but that idea of speaking out and I suppose trying to sell tickets through bravado, but and that dates back decades, as we all know. But Katie is a fascinating character without necessarily being a colourful character. And she's incredibly quietly charismatic, which is one of the first things I realised when I got to spend the first little bits of time with her. Is like, she's so charismatic and without saying anything. And that's one of the big things, one of the big challenges, like how do you transpose it onto the screen? You're just trying to witness being with her and get that across to people. And people say that they're getting it, hopefully they are. Going back to how it started, I would be good friends with Brian Peters, her manager of many years. I would be friends of many years, and he became her manager kind of in the next couple of months after Rio, when she was thinking about going pro and ultimately decided to go pro. And Brian and I had a couple of conversations about it, and then we sat down with Katie and discussed it. And it turned out that Katie had kind of always been interested, or had for some time been interested in a documentary, because I think possibly, she feels like her story should be documented in some shape or form. And it just had never worked out. People had actually filmed a little bit with her in the past, and it just hadn't felt right. It hadn't been the right kind of chemistry. And my approach to things, I suppose, is quite fly on the wall, or I sort of call it witnessing. You want to witness the story as it happens, and we kind of felt that would work better for her, to just kind of be there, to kind of gauge for her as more of an introverted person when was enough, when to push it and when not to push it, when you could develop aspects of interviews or parts of her story, and when it was better just to let her have a break from it, for a little while. And we seemed to it just seemed to naturally hit right between the two of us, because I'm probably more of an introvert as well, and I understand she gets a lot of her energy by spending time on her own.
Yeah.
Like a day and a half, 2 days before a fight, she will not leave her hotel room. like she's building the energy. Like that's how the introvert builds the energy. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Conor McGregor, for example, you know, he gets energy from being out there and amongst people and so on and so forth. Just like polar opposite personality-wise. So it was important, I suppose, to keep that in mind and not be trying to make Katie into something that she wasn't. Try instead to let her be who she is and realise that that's as compelling, that she's as interesting a character as someone who wants to speak out all the time. So that was kind of the approach.
You say you've been working on it for just over 2 years. So if you start this before or after Rio?
So what are we now? We're in 2018. So we finished the edit in July. So actually it was under 2 years. I told you that wrong when we were watching the trailer. But yeah, we started just late October, I think. So it was about 2 months after Rio, just in the build-up to that first fight that she had. It was great that it came together really quickly because you want to be there at the start. And then we finished editing it in mid-July, having filmed her fight with Bustos as kind of part of a chapter at the end. So what's that? I suppose about 20 months or so, yeah.
Because post-Rio is an incredibly brave time for Katie Taylor to say, yeah, this is the time when I want to start this documentary.
It's incredible in retrospect, you know, the bravery that she would have to go, no, I'm going to do this, you know. And I think that, well, first of all, I suppose we had conversations about it. I explained how it would work and so on, and that obviously chimed with her. But I think, you know, she has this quiet confidence that things will work out in the end. You know, there will be setbacks and there will be obstacles, but things will work out in the end. And we explained to her why this was a great time to start, because, like, you know, it's intriguing. A comeback story is always intriguing, you know, and you need to be in at the base level, the ground level, to go on that journey that hopefully goes upwards, you know, with some difficulties along the way and so forth. But she just bought into it, and I'm delighted she did. I think this film's kind of important, you know. It's important to have been able to document someone as noteworthy as Katie is, and who's kind of a legend of sport. And to be able to kind of have that document there into the future, because I think it'll be something that people will look back upon when they think of Katie Taylor in the future. Yeah,
like Rio is such an important part of her career, and it's not going to be the thing that defines her, but it is one of the things that we can view in the documentary that is part of the definition of her character. Like, for example, well deep into her professional career, it's before she wins a title, but like actually about 4 or 5 fights into her career, she is saying things like, Rio, I still haven't got over it. It's still something that I feel deeply saddened by with every single day, which is an incredible statement and an incredible picture of the character that Katie Taylor is. Like, the one-dimensional view we get of the post-fight interview on RTE when it's quite raw, I think a lot of us thought that would have been a fleeting feeling like most other athletes, but not for Katie Taylor. Yeah, well, even up to the present day, I'm pretty sure she thinks about it every day, you know, and I think that that's something that's part of what's driving her. You know, I think there's a lot more to come from Katie Taylor. A lot of people don't realise what fights are out there for her. Like, there's going to be a year or two of some pretty exciting stuff, and Rio will always be part of her story. You're right, you know. But I think that as she goes on to do more things, there's going to be all these different chapters to her career. And, you know, she would never say that Rio was good for her, you know, or in some way helped her career. But that's not to say that it hasn't, you know, driven her on to do more. It's not to say that it hasn't maybe developed parts of her personality. You know, she had to go out on her own. She moved to the States on her own. Someone that had lived her whole life in the bosom of her family, you know, with her mum making her meals and her dad organising her training and their trips and so on and so forth, like, made that big a decision because she believes that what she's doing, well, it's so important to her. And then obviously it has other ramifications for female sport, or to inspire any person. I mean, look what we've seen during the week with all the young women, teenage girls who've won all these medals. Like, that impact is massive, and she knows that. Like, she, even outside of our social media and media bubbles, like, she's getting that kind of feedback all the time, the significance that her success has for other people. What was the single biggest thing you learned about Katie Taylor's character when you go on this journey with her from a low point in Rio to a high point of becoming world champion? Yeah, I think it's something we touched on already. I think it's her bravery, like, one, her bravery in taking this on, but also Katie, when she does something, it's 100%. You know, she doesn't do things by half. And when she said she was going to be open in the documentary, when she said she was going to give access, you know, we see Katie in some, you know, breaking down in this film. We see Katie in some emotional moments in this film, and she didn't shy away from that. You know, like, just like, you
maybe another athlete, like other athletes have pulled out of Olympics for less. Do you know what I mean? Like Katie will always front up, and in the film she does it as well. And she said to me to start, I want it to be the truth. I want it to be raw if it has to be raw. If we're going to do it, let's do it properly. And we could agree on that, obviously. So that's what I've learned about her, is that she just is someone that is unfailingly honest and a person of her word. And if she says she's going to do something, I've filmed with people in the past where you agree everything and then on the day their phone is off. You know what I mean? Any media person or filmmaker has probably had that experience. But with Katie, it's not like that. If she says she's going to do something, she'll do it.
The honesty obviously comes through very well when she speaks about her father in the documentary, and it's quite a candid moment for her. It's quite a candid moment for her mother in terms of how they speak about the whole situation. And she speaks about how her father had an affair, basically, and that is why the whole relationship broke down.
I think that she said that her dad decided to step away from the family. It was the words that Katie used, because she almost has her own vernacular at times. But I mean, it's absolute devastation, and you can see that in the film. And it's a little bit different for Katie. I think, Pete was such a brilliant coach to her and mentor to her, and so close to her as her father, that it wasn't just the normal impact for someone of one of their parents leaving a relationship. It was the double impact of, the two things that were closest to her in her life, her family and her boxing. Like, those are the two priorities. Any third priority in Katie's life is way behind those two priorities. Like, that's what's so important to her. I mean, apart from obviously her devotion to Christianity, which is another, big pillar of her life, obviously. But to have those things taken away from you, and also the timing of them, like, utterly devastating. And I think we see that in the film. We understand a lot better why things went so astray for her, and how hard it must be to pick yourself up from that.
It's also how hard it must be for her to ever muster some sort of forgiveness, because one of the very closing scenes, I think you kind of finish up around January, February this year with her. She says she's just spoken to her father, and that was the first time since everything that we now know did happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, January 2018 was kind of the last interview, and then we filmed a little bits of her upcoming fights as kind of final chapters with Bustos winning the title, just because you kind of feel like the film has to be as up-to-date as it humanly can be. Yeah, I mean, those are kind of private matters for Katie to a certain extent. Like, she was touching base with her dad around that time, and I think what she says in the film that, at that moment, and honestly, I finished filming with her at that point, so I'm not really sure what happens beyond that in both of their lives, but they're building bridges, and it's something that I think anyone can kind of recognise, is that, like, your parent is your parent and you always love them, and I think that certainly that's something that at that point in her life she was looking at, but I honestly don't know what happens beyond that. But I think it was incredibly tough time for her, and it's something that will always be a low point in her life.
For sure. Like, it's interesting just kind of throughout this conversation, like in your very first answer, making the comparison with Conor McGregor and the brash nature of it all. And I always think with Katie Taylor that there's just a deep level of confidence, that there isn't kind of a whole layer of insecurity around Katie Taylor, that she is as confident as Conor McGregor is, but she channels it in very different ways. But at the same time, there's some elements in the documentary which kind of maybe disprove that to a certain extent. Like, she's incredibly hard on herself. Like, after the Nina Manka fight, she's asked by Ross, how would you rate that fight? And I think he was saying like a 7 out of 10, and he would be harsh. And she's like, nah, 5 out of 10. And not even sort of being modest about it, being really self-critical.
Yeah, almost, to a fault. I think that she's so hard on herself. And even I know, like, other members of her family feel like she's too hard on herself, and that, try to enjoy it a little bit more. Like, she's absolutely driven. And her brother Peter told me a story, didn't end up in the documentary, but they were at a school sports day, and Katie was doing the 100 meters. I think she was quite quick, in those kind of events, and won, like she did in every sport, won loads of stuff. But all of the other girls in the lead up to the race were chatting amongst each other. They'd obviously seen each other at other events and so on and so forth. And Katie was off at the side on her own, crying, because she was so nervous and so determined to win. Like, there's something obviously in that has made her the champion that she is, like, she gets incredibly nervous. Like the week or two before a fight, it's always a very tough time for her, I think. Ultimately, she just wants to get in the ring, but I don't know if that's the same as the confidence thing. You know, I wonder if it's just such a desire to win and to perform that that desire is so great that it almost is overwhelming.
A quest for perfection, and the end goal might never arrive in that quest for perfection, or maybe it will. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, she does recognise that she has performed better in some fights than others. I mean, despite some hilariously bad reporting, like, she fought Jessica McCaskill in London that time, and Jessica's gone on to win a title since. But, like, it was a masterclass of boxing, you know, and you know, you talk to her after that fight and she'd be happy with some of the things that she had done, but I think she always thinks she can do better, you know. And when you see her in training, see some of the things she does and the speed at which she does some of the things, you know that it would be hard to even transpose all of those things in the ring. But, like, if it ever does click where everything is right, it's going to be spectacular to watch, because she's just like an incredible technician, very talented, and so dedicated athletically as well.
Well, maybe it is a sign of confidence, actually, now that I said what I said, that she knows that she can do better, and that her confidence tells her that, you know, the performance that I'm doing and putting out in the ring at the moment just isn't where it can be, and she does have that confidence to go on and push herself further. And who knows, maybe we will see another peak of Katie Taylor, maybe this weekend, maybe in the following fights. I did want to ask you, though, it kind of ties in with all of this, just in terms of some very interesting quotes from the likes of Eddie Hearn and from Katie Taylor and from Ross, her coach, as well, about the idea of promotion, because the pro game is one of the most fascinating chapters in the documentary. Like, she says she's got no interest in padding her record. Eddie says the problem with Katie is that she constantly wants to be challenged. She seemed offended almost by Jessica McCaskill and that call-out video with the milk bottle. And Ross, her coach, says, you want to be exciting, but you got to be smart too. Right after Eddie Hearn says, we can't afford fights that aren't entertaining. So there is this sort of conflict here between the lack of a loudmouth in Katie Taylor, but these performances that were so exhilarating that in some of the commentary you play in the documentary, you forget that how surprised the professional boxing world was by how entertaining Katie Taylor was as a fighter and how ruthlessly she disposed of some of her opponents. Yeah,
well, she wants to do the entertaining in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's why she's so hard on herself. Like, she wants every fight... Look, this is my opinion. You know, I'm not saying that Katie is specifically saying this, but this is what I garner from watching her, is that she wants every fight to be exciting. She wants to show the level of skill that she has. She wants people to be wowed and to want, like, she knows that to have a career in this, people are going to have to want to watch her. So, and I think she knows that she has a lot to offer. So I think that's what she's looking at. It's not really about doing the trash talk before the fight. It's more about, like, showing people what she's capable of. And if they see that, then they'll realise that it's worth watching and continue to support her. And some of the performances are incredible, you know. And boxing's always a tough one, because they say, like, styles make fights, and sometimes you can do everything right and the opponent makes you look bad or whatever it might be. But, like, I think that what Katie wants to do is make every fight exhilarating, and she's going in there. And I think what Ross is probably getting at is, like, you know, you don't have to go in at 100 miles an hour in the first round, you know, pick your moment. You've got 10 rounds to kind of break this person down or whatever it might be. So, but yeah, she's definitely wants to entertain. Like, she loves watching boxing. She loves entertaining fighters, but really, I think more so, in my opinion, watching her, it's that she wants to do that more so in the ring.
Katie Taylor's future is fascinating, like what she does after boxing. And we can talk about character development in this documentary because it was filmed over such a long period of time. In a very strange way, that the character, if I can call it that developed in the most unique way when I watched it was actually the town of Vernon in Connecticut. Like, the way I viewed it at the start as a sort of very lonely place that I wouldn't like to live in, that I might have perceived that Katie Taylor didn't particularly enjoy living in. By the end of the documentary, it's not that she's at peace with it. She kind of realises that this is a fantastic place for her. She's chatting to people in the community. It feels more like a home. That this, I don't know, this monk life existence, even though it's not quite monk life, it's not that remote, but there is something poetic about it that really suits Katie Taylor. That really, there's elements of it that are down to earth in kind of playing with her personality.
It is. There isn't much in Vernon, honestly. It's quite a remote, kind of quiet little town, and that probably suits Katie in some ways, you know, but she, you know, no one can survive without friends some of the time. And I think when the first trip I went over to her, she was incredibly isolated. I can't speak to her level of loneliness, but it certainly seems like a lonely existence. And I know that her family were really concerned about that aspect of going and living your own in the States. So, but she has developed friendships and so on and so forth, and certainly made it easier for her. But I tell you one interesting thing about that. Like when I spoke to her about that, I said, like, it's great. Like one of the last days I was in Vernon with her, we were driving in the car, and I sort of said to her, God, it's great that this is kind of working out, because you feel like this is a person that's gone, has kind of probably maybe even evolved a little bit as a person over the course of this kind of 18 months. You've seen them grow up a little bit. They've gone out on their own, all those kinds of things that...
Like cooking for themselves.
Yeah, cooking, flying the nest, all those things. But I said to her, it's really brilliant that this has kind of worked out. Like, that you've made friends, that, you're just getting to know the place better. Her cooking has not improved, she says. She's just found better restaurants. But she said to me, she's like, yeah, it's great. And she goes, but even if it hadn't, I'd still be here, because this is a place I have to be to achieve my goals. Like, again, it's like the priorities are like winning boxing matches. Yeah. Friendship, comes behind that. Like,
tells you everything.
Yeah, it is. And like, I kind of couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? I thought she'd just be like, yeah, it's great. It's like, yeah, it's great, but this is where I have to be if I'm going to win. And I do think the future is like...
What's she going to do after boxing?
Oh, after boxing? That's...
in your view, like,
yeah,
she hasn't decided.
Yeah, it's a tough one. First of all, I think she's got a lot to do in the ring. Like, you'd love to see her do... you don't want her to go on too long. Like, that's always the story, isn't it, with boxers? You don't want them to go on too long. But, if she has a year or two more and fights some of these fights like Serrano, Brackus, Pursoon, like, there's huge fights out there for her, and it's only going to get bigger. And other, like Mosley, the Olympic champion, has gone pro. Like, she's a couple of fights in, and she's a phenomenal athlete. So there's massive fights for Katie down the road, and I think people are going to start waking up to that. But beyond that, I don't think she's really even thought about it. But one thing I noticed is that in the company of kids, like anytime she does a signing, anything like that, like there's this unbelievable rapport that she has with kids, and they're amazingly inspired by her. But she also like interacts with them differently than she does with adults. It really comes naturally to her. And it's funny because she says in the doc, like, I don't think I'd ever want to have kids. I don't know if it's kind of, if she's being flippant or not, but like when she's with kids, it's phenomenal seeing the connection. And you just think like this person has such a role as an inspiration to kids, as a mentor to kids, as a role model to kids. And we've already seen, as we were talking about, some of the success that people have had in her wake. You'd feel like that would be a really natural thing for her to move into. How exactly, I'm not sure, but I definitely think that she's got a lot to offer in that respect.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ross, it's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on it. It's out next Friday in Irish cinemas.
October the 26th, yeah, Friday, October 26th.
Ross Whitaker, thank you so much for popping in the studio.
Thanks a million, thanks for having me.
Yeah, that'll be will be live this day next week. That's Ross Whitaker in conversation with Owen there in relation to that new documentary. Reminder as well that we are calling all students. We've teamed up with Vodafone X to fuel your passion for sport by giving you the chance to join Team Off the Ball for a week. You're going to get to see what happens behind the scenes of a show. You're going to attend a press conference. You might have the opportunity to help report at a match and even feature as a co-host of a show. And if all that wasn't enough, you'll also receive yourself a pretty sweet iPhone 8. With a year's subscription to Vodafone X Sport, giving you the chance to access 7 dedicated Sky Sports channels. To enter that competition, just submit a demo tape, so take some movie yourself, doing some sports stuff, and your details, and you can put all of that up on offtheball.com/Vodafone X, and it particularly helps if you're into Snapchat or Instagram, so you can head along to offtheball.com/Vodafone X. Check out all the details on that. One man who doesn't require that route to get into studios, Alan Quinlan. Good morning to you, Quinny.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
I'm good. It's we were sat here last weekend. A reminder as well, by the way, that obviously we're into round 2 of the Heineken ChampionsCup this weekend. Munster Ulster is the live game and Off the Ball on Saturday from Thomond Park. It's Conor Morris in company of Keith Wood and Liam Tolan. So that's coming your way tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We were sat here last week and we were previewing the weekend ahead, and we were talking about this Ireland versus England stuff on the basis of what we've seen. Ireland are very much ahead, and could you extend that almost to say that Leinster, as we sit, forgetting about who's going to win the tournament, Leinster and Munster are the best 2 teams in Europe at the minute?
I'm not sure. I think obviously Munster's draw on Exeter was a superb result. Yeah. I think we were all kind of saying losing bonus points a good result. So a draw is a great result. A win would have been a fantastic result, which they probably should deserve to get. And look, they could have lost in the end as well. I've heard a lot of people talk about the connection between particularly Munster and Leinster in Europe, and the way they just go to a different level of intensity and passion and pride and stuff. We love this competition. Anytime I played in it, it was a more exciting week than normal, to be fair. And players love it. It's a great competition. So I think we really get excited about it. I think the demands of the Premiership sometimes can affect their preparation. And look, they've legitimate reason to say, look, the Irish players get rested a fair bit, and they're, you know, under the pump all the time. After the Ulster game last weekend, I think it was someone said to Peter O'Reilly or questioned him coming out of the ground, that made a comment about Tom Young's having played started the last 6 games for Leicester, and Rory Best he said rested for 6 weeks, but Rory Best was injured. But you know, none of the top Irish guys are starting 6 games in a trot now here. So the system is the envy, and it does help us for Europe.
It's used as a stick to beat Irish teams, isn't it? It's like, well, you're only better than us because you're resting all your players.
Yeah, and look, there's always...
Is it as simple as that?
It's no, it's not. I think we have a lot of top quality players. I think the depth of the provinces is what's brought the Irish teams back in contention in Europe, and has obviously helped Leinster win it last year. You know, you go back a few years ago when there was a lot of pessimism around with no Irish team qualifying in 2015-16 season. So it was 5 English, 3 French then. So there's a fair bit changed, and look, they have the legitimate reason to moan a little bit. The system here, it enables the players to be fresh enough, and I was saying it to you last week, Tyg Furlong set out the Munster-Leinster game, a nutritional, physical game, and you see him running around the field against Wasps last week. He's
throwing offloads and little side steps.
So it does make a little bit of a difference, but it is that's just the way it is. They've got to accept it. I think on their day, they'll always try and find some excuse, and if they win, you know, you don't hear a lot about it. So look, there's a lot of good teams in England. It is an attritional league, and I think the issue for them is maybe depth after their, you know, and you're obviously highlighting the success of Leinster last week and how good they were, but they were, you know, and Leo Cullen will know this because he's pretty straight and honest, and he understands, and he'll be trying to keep his players grounded going to Toulouse. You're taking Joe Launchbury and Nathan Hughes out of that pack, and they're 2 top quality international, big, strong, physical guys. So they don't throw the towel in. You know, Launchbury's a hard man. He doesn't throw the towel in no matter what the score is, and that Wasps team they went to ground, and Leinster just showed a real ruthless streak. So I think when it comes to Europe, yeah, Leinster are top, Munster probably in the top 3 or 4. Looking at last weekend, who will challenge Leinster? I was thinking Saracens to be able to go to Glasgow, and then you have the 2 Vunipola brothers get injured and they're out for a long period. There's no Clermont in the competition and we forget that sometimes. They've been the team that they're nearly next to impossible to beat over there, and they're always very, very strong. They're not in it. So there's not many teams that you see, and I think Racing are obviously a very strong squad, but I don't see, at the moment, it's hard to see anyone beating Leinster, you know.
If Leinster were in the Premiership, do you think they'd be struggling? It seems that they've got such depth that even if they were forced to play a very, very good team every single week, it'd still be okay.
It's hard to know, you know, because attritionally it is a big demand, and even from a squad point of view, trying to prepare a team, and you can't just switch them, completely flip the team over and change it week after week if you've got games like that. But you think their depth is a lot better, I think, and that's the one thing. I was chatting to Dominic Ryan, who just retired a week ago, and he was saying, look, there is a big difference between the depth. It's probably from 23 onwards.
But the salary cap doesn't help that, is it?
Yeah, and if they sign a couple of big players, then it affects their ability to kind of strengthen the squad, but outside of their 23. So, look, it's probably just a period where, you know, Leinster at a different level. Like I said, it was different a few years ago, and the system does work here, and everyone keeps... Sometimes we get compliments about it, but invariably it's...
Digs.
There's reasons for, it's because we lost, because Leinster are... they changed the Champions Cup a few years ago to stop this, to have, you know, qualification for Europe, to make it more competitive, to make the Irish teams... But I think there's an ability just to have a big squad, and Munster are getting that little bit of depth now. You saw the impact off the bench last week when you're bringing on Cronin, Marshall, Tommy O'Donnell, Arnold, these guys who were, probably starters last year and probably not happy that they're on the bench. But there's a sort of John Ryan comes off the bench, so there's a good bit of experience and impact coming off the bench.
Take on that point. So, like, the mood music around Munster at the minute is pretty good. It's pretty positive. It's pretty upbeat. Like, you look at a lot's been written about Duncan Williams over the last. All those players you've mentioned, Duncan Williams been rightly hailed for his performance of the last weekend. The success story of Joey Carberry and Tyke Byrne, particularly Quinny, like, just strikes me as a guy who's fitted into the Munster fabric fairly seamlessly and has that sort of Peter O'Mahony-esque sort of capacity to be a bit of a leader, I think, for Munster, is he?
Yeah, he's a huge addition to him, there's no doubt. And he showed that in the Scarlets, that he's not someone who's afraid to go to a different team and buy into the jersey and get on well with people. So he's obviously a popular guy, and he's a sensational player, I think. He was phenomenal last weekend. His work ethic is just immense, and he never stops, and he's a good footballer as well. So he's not your big, bruising, physical type second row who just makes hard yards. He's multi-talented, and he's a major addition to him. He's a major addition to bring that kind of energy and talent and skill set to into the second row for him. And he's like an extra back row. So, and
on that point, where's his Ireland future? Like, he's got a couple of Ireland caps.
Yeah,
there is a spot in the second row potentially.
There's a bit of the slight versatility tag could slip onto his back. But he should forget
about the back row, shouldn't he? Because
well,
from an Ireland point of view,
there's for and against, because you think with World Cups and being named in squads and stuff like that, the versatility thing will get you in ahead of the 50-50 call with somebody else.
But it won't get you in the starting team.
Yeah, and then you nail yourself down to one position, and you might have to bide your time or be in and out of the team a bit. So you never know. I'm sure these conversations will be had. Look, when Peter O'Mahony plays, at the moment, his form is superb at the start of this year, and he has been for Ireland for a while now. You can play him at 6. If there is, I think to have the option to put him in the back row if there was an injury with whether the 6 or 8 is good to have. But I think for the moment, I think he's definitely starter as a second row for Munster. The Irish thing is a bit trickier. Do you play him and James Ryan? Yeah. Similar attributes, if you like. Footballers do a lot of movement. The work rate is huge. There's 15-20 carries a game, plus the same number of tackles. I like the balance, and I always say this, of your kind of big bruiser type second row who's putting the head down a bit more and making hard carries off slow ball, and then a real skillful footballer who runs the line out well. But then you've got Ian Henderson as well, who he's a bit more of a bruiser, if you like, than maybe James Ryan. And although it's hard to argue, Ryan has everything, I think. He can do it all.
He's nearly the banker, isn't he? And then it's almost up for grabs.
Yeah, and Devin Toner's form has been fantastic as well. So
Schmidt likes Henderson too. That's part of the
difficulty. Yeah, and there's a lot of options there. But I think for Byrne, he's been a great addition to Munster. He's brought a new level of detail and skill set there, and just giving them that little bit of depth. So they've got to perform tomorrow. There's a lot of talk about the miracle match all week, and Gloucester, actually, ironically, and not many people remember this, came the year after the Thomond Park as well. Well, Munster had to go over to Gloucester first, and they lost that game. Gloucester beat them over their 22-11, and then Munster beat them in the return fixture in January. So it was 2 years in a row we played Munster or played Gloucester. Munster won back-to-back in, was it 2013-14 season. Right. They won the back-to-back fixture, or the home and away fixture there. It's hard to analyse Gloucester. I'm not sure where they're at. They've been patchy in the Premiership, 1-3, I think lost 2 and drawn 1. Watching them last week against Cass, they were strong defensively, I think, and probably, but I just don't know where that spark is. And probably the one thing for them that can ignite him is Cipriani. If he comes to Thomond Park and excels and does well, gets in the front foot.
Chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, and Gerben Grobler is coming back as well, so he'll know
somebody
the Munster
on YouTube has a question on that. Quinny here, Darren O'Toole for Quinny. Does he think that Grobler will be as dangerous as Donnacha Ryan was last year in the line-out for Gloucester against Munster tomorrow?
Well, he didn't play as much, obviously, as Donnacha Ryan would have played. He'd a very
peripheral.
Yeah, so he could be, because he'll know. Like, he won't have played against Tadhg Byrne much. He won't know much about him, but he'll know the strength of Peter O'Mahony, and I'm sure he'll be talking to the Gloucester guys about, the way the Munster win a lot of ball kind of middle to back through O'Mahony there, and so yeah, he'll know the movements and he'll know the timing and stuff, but it's like going up against your guys in training. Sometimes you can, the team that are starting are going up against the reserves and neither can get near each other's ball. So
can you be powerless if you know the calls to even stop them?
Oh, the calls will be completely changed.
Will they? Van
Absolutely.
Grant said something this week, but he's obviously just playing the media that Grobler would probably know a thing or two, but what can you do?
Yeah, but the line-out calls will be changed. The same formations may not, but like every line-out, you have 4 or 5 options when you go into the line-out to throw to different positions, different movements. So he'll probably just be watching some of the movement and stuff. But for him, you overanalyze and the ball has gone into the line-out. So they've got to just kind of worry about their own areas of getting two pods in the air and trying to put pressure on. Munster's line-out was really good last week in horrendous conditions, but yeah, I'm kind of nervous to get too carried away. Part of me says Munster will, have a big win, and another part of me is making me a little bit like. To be fair, they lost in the Leinster game, draw last week. They need a win now. They need to get
back it up.
Yeah, they need to get a win now. And there's been, you're talking about taking positives out of those games and creating opportunities. The ideal scenario, look, would be bonus point win. They won't be thinking that way because that 2 points last week gives them to an added bonus, that extra point, if you like, because we were all predicting that the losing bonus point would be a good result. So they've got to start well, and they've probably a bit of consistency now in selection and that can help a little bit, but execution has still been an issue because they, a few opportunities last week that they didn't take and some unforced errors. So you got to start well in Thomond Park. The crowd get behind you, and it's a great place to play. But I hope they don't wait and they come out of the blocks well and go after Gloucester early, and we'll see what happens then.
Danny Cipriani decision is classic Eddie Jones, no obvious logic, says Austin Healy here in the Daily Telegraph.
And I agree with him. I think Cipriani's been sensational this year. He's passing, his distribution, his kicking game, and he just gives a real spark to him. The downside, and Luke Fitzgerald probably spoke about this in his own podcast, is defensively he's sometimes can, he's non-functional in defence sometimes. For a big, strong guy, he's very athletic and physical. 2 years ago, Leinster targeted him in the Aviva, and he had no influence on the game. So it's the Champions Cup, and this is probably what we get asked a lot, Adrian, is the intensity just goes up to a different level, and
some players can cope with that.
Yeah, some can. And look, he'll have played against Munster. He played a few years ago over in Sale, and Sale were in a very strong position, and you think that the game won. Munster came back and he made some errors. So you've got to put pressure on Danny Cipriani. If he gets on the front foot, he's very, very dangerous. So Munster will have to go after him and put a bit of pressure on him tomorrow. But they've some good players, Gloucester, so they're not going to go there and they'll be aware of the history and the miracle match and all that stuff. But I think they'll have to go in front up and take on that Munster pack, who the last couple of weeks have shown a lot of promise with their scrum, line out, and their carries.
And the Leinstrification of Munster continues, Quinny?
Yeah, Nick McCarthy, it's I think it's something, again, that seems to be only happening in recent years. I know a lot of guys, some guys would have went to Connacht who weren't getting an opportunity in Leinster or Munster, and maybe went through the academy systems there, but now there seems to be...
It feels different now, doesn't it?
It's kind of like I won't say the loyalty, but the opportunity, if it creeps up for someone, it's like, I got to take this because... And to be fair to Nick McCarthy, going to Munster, I think it probably gives him an opportunity to take to go after that number 2 spot rather than the number 1, number 9 position.
Himself and Joy in better days, Quinny.
Carberry and I think it's a chance for him to maybe go after that position there as number 2 and play more games, start more games, because obviously with Conor Murray being your starting out half for Ireland, he's away a fair bit, and so it's a good move for Munster, but it's another outside player coming into the province, and that's just the way it is. And
look, as long as we can continue to stock you up, Quinny, that's...
Yeah, we're very happy, Adrian.
I don't know of any Connacht players currently popping up the Munster setup, Quinny.
Racing Ulster is the other game tomorrow night. Quinny, just a very quick word on it. Paris tomorrow evening. Ulster obviously beating the Tigers last weekend. The big storyline, obviously, and the thing that we're going to be looking at is Simon Zebo's performance against Ulster.
And this is a great chance for him, because it's I know people have seen him in the top 14 and he's been really good, Zebo. He seems to be loving it there, and I speak to Rog regularly. Roger's in Paris at the moment, and he's been at a few of the games, and he's played really well. So this is a big chance when the Champions Cup comes on to kind of showcase.
Everybody's looking at
in
it.
In the UK and Ireland, a lot of people will be watching this game. So he plays well there. Everybody's writing about it in the Irish press on Monday. So it's a good opportunity for him. And Donnacha Ryan, I think they're trying to sign Donnacha Ryan up for another couple of years. It shows the impact he's made there. So that's a tough one for Ulster. And Racing, even though I part of me just suspects that, I don't know, if Ulster go and throw the shackles off, you're playing in a 3G pitch, the condition, you're going to be able to throw the ball around a bit. That... they may cause Racing a few problems. Yeah, they might if they go and throw the ball around a bit. I think they need to be ambitious and go there. I think if you looked at that Munster game last year, the first game that was in that the U Arena there, it was a great game. Not many drop balls. The conditions were perfect. The ball was dry. So Ulster, if they go and throw the shackles off a little bit, they can test Racing and frustrate him a bit, I think.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that one. I don't know what's to be said about, we touched on already, Leinster's win last weekend. It's Toulouse on Sunday at 3:15. Like, there's a lot written this morning, particularly about sort of the casting back to 2006 and the very different dynamic that was at play that day down there. Toulouse have been sort of off the map, I suppose, to put it that way, haven't they, for the last sort of 7-8 years particularly?
Yeah, I think the last time they won a trophy was 2012, was it? They won the French Championship.
The dying embers of Guy Novez.
And Heineken Cup in 2010, wasn't it? Yeah, there was it was the Toulouse team was kind of similar to the Munster group, if you like, where a huge amount of us kind of left in the space of 3 or 4 years, and it was very similar for Toulouse, where they had like probably 15, 20 French internationals on a regular basis in the French team, and so powerful for Toulouse, big names, and a lot of those guys just went, and the difficulties, big changeover, new legacy, all that kind of stuff, and Toulon, the Toulons, the Racings have kind of overtaken them a little bit, and they're still thereabouts in the French Championship. Lyon, there's a lot of strong teams there now. La Rochelle's there, before it was Toulouse and the rest.
Non-traditional names almost.
And they were the team to beat always. So it's they've lost that aura a little bit, but they have a great history in this competition. They look very dangerous against Bath a few times last week. I did that game.
They got away. They got out of Dodge, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, there was it's kind of like when they turn on a switch and it goes off a little bit, and it's a typical French mentality at times. Now they'd be pretty alert with Leinster coming, because I was just reading at a captain this morning, Julian Marchand, who's a superb player, the hooker. He's only 23. He's a club captain. He's a really good player, called into the French squad as well. We can spring a surprise. So they it's not as if they're going to be shocked here, and I like the fact that he understands how good Leinster are, and they know that. So they'll be embracing the challenge a little bit, and if you allow the French crowd, but I think there's enough experience in this Leinster team to block out the crowd, perform, not be affected by the travel and the being away from home, to control and just get a result on Sunday. I'd be really surprised if they didn't get a good win there.
Yeah. the Freddie Burns cock-up, we're not going to sort of dwell on it too much. The reaction to it has sort of been interesting to me, that like it's almost as if people are rewriting what happened. Like, he wasn't showboating or particularly sort of, like, it wasn't anywhere near a Chris Ashton dive type thing. It was like, he should have been more aware. Actually, it struck me that there was some players around him, his own teammates, who should have been shouting at him that this guy was coming in on him. Anyway, so we're not going to dwell on it too much, but just the reaction to it, I thought, was a bit OTT.
Yeah, a little bit. I felt sorry for him. Jesus, you missed a penalty 2 minutes beforehand, and then you get a chance to win the game by scoring a try, and it was more relief. But look, I think there's a lot of coaches, and people have asked me during the week about it. I think a lot of rugby coaches will show that to teams, underage teams, to say, look, when you go over the line, at least hold it in two hands, because if you feel some sort of contact somewhere, you can drop down. Whereas it was just massive relief. So I felt sorry for him. Some people have criticised him, saying he should have known better, and they've no sympathy for him. I felt sorry for him.
I think OTT.
It's not nice to see that, you know. But to be fair to Madar, never gives up as well. So there's a lesson in both of it. Never stop going after a guy even when he's over the line, you know.
The flip side is, if he'd gone in and actually touched the ball down, you would have said to yourself, I'd love to see that fella get caught there in the end. You'd love to see him mess up, and he did. So
yeah, I don't think he was showboating. It was just more relief, and he was kind of like smiling. And but look, don't do that. No, you just don't do it.
Get it done.
You don't do it.
Couple of doubts for Leinster, Carney and Levy. Like, almost that might not be the worst thing. Given the depth that they have, they can bring players in there. That
there's no difference. Look, you
they might freshen it up almost.
Larmer can go full back, so they have a lot of options. And the same in the back row. We saw what Rhys Ruddock did last week. So Sean O'Brien can come in there, and he probably, he may start. He's still working his way back into kind of match fitness, so they're in a very strong position. And
it's a bad time for Levy to get injured. There's never a good time to get injured in this Leinster squad.
I think there is, because I think Joe Schmidt will want to see guys performing these couple of weeks, and they go into Europe now, or go into the November stuff now. And but I think he'll understand, and I think Levy will be in that squad, but maybe he'll play into the weekend, I don't know.
A couple of comments in there. Connacht against Sale. Everyone hoping for Ashton to have Freddie Burns-esque nightmare of a day. Connacht to win.
That's the thing. If someone like Chris Ashton, it happens.
We'd all be loving it.
Everyone would love to see him drop the ball, but you know what? He'll probably never drop one doing that swan dive. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Connacht started well last week against Bordeaux. It was a good win, and with Sale going there, they won't want to see Ashton going over doing that swan dive anyway in the sports ground. He get plenty of grief.
He got a lot of guff. Last one, Sarries looked tired in the last 20. No Claremont. There are a pack of teams at 2, 3 and 4, but there is a gap between them and Leinster.
Yeah, agreed. There's probably, like I said, Saracens, Racing, maybe Munster come in behind that. So, look, it's very early days, but it's Leinster to lose, really, isn't it? There is a bit of a gap. Exeter could still be very, very dangerous, and they'll maybe learn a lot from last week. That's the conditions, maybe, and the way the game was slowed down, and they couldn't play as much. But they are a good side, Exeter, so they could trouble a lot of teams if they were to get a home quarter final. It'd be hard to see someone going there and winning, no matter who it is. So it'll be interesting to see now. But
and I'm not writing Munster off. You know that they're my pick for the year.
I think Munster will be in much better position, and I mean this respectfully to the other centres, when Chris Farrell is back in the mix, because he's an international quality player. He's so big, strong, physical, and his distribution is superb as well. And Jaco Tauta, when he's fit and probably up to match speed. I'm not saying that they'll be automatic starters, but there's a lot of options then with Scannell, Arnold, Goggin has been really good. But their distribution and their just that clinical side has to. But I think the way they're going, if they can be in the mix at the end of the season, Munster, with the pedigree in the competition and with the cup mentality that they have, if they execute better, they could trouble, any of the top teams, really.
Every time you mention Munster potentially being successful, there's always some sort of sarcastic grin there.
Yeah, and he's focusing too much on this,
Listen, lads,
as if this is like Leicester City winning the Premier League.
In the studio full of,
it's a difference, but if they get, listen, there's a long way to go in these pools. Round 2, and I tell you from history, is it can go pear-shaped. If you take your eye off the ball, you've got to bin whatever's happened the week before. in Europe, because you can get cut out very, very quickly, and you'll probably see a few surprise results. Look at Newcastle going to Toulon last weekend. They were fantastic. They're bottom in the Premiership, and they go to Toulon, and that's kind of like the mentality I'm saying that Ulster need to have. They need to go and just play and not kind of restrict themselves. Move the ball around. If they execute well, get a score or two away from home, and suddenly you can get a result. So if Newcastle can go to Toulon and do that, you know, a lot of teams, we may see a surprise or two at the weekend. Right, look, enjoy the games of the weekend. Quinny, thanks a million as always. If you're not watching on radio, you can listen to me and Dave McIntyre on Virgin Media. Well, what I would do is I'd put on the TV almost and then put the radio on alongside it. Conor Morris and Tolley and Woody on. Yeah, okay.
It's controversial.
Are you on match commentary, or is it?
We're on match commentary with Dave, on Virgin Media.
We can watch the Munster win back with the bonus.
I watch the highlights, exactly. We're going to accommodate everything.
I won't tell you what to do.
That's almost it from us for this morning. OTB AM is live, of course, with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice over 20,000 quality trade products. As I said, that game is live on Off the Ball tomorrow afternoon, so you can check that out there, and plenty of action as well live on Air Sport over the weekend too, so do check out all of that good stuff. We want to remind you as well that the Amanda Stapleton Benefit Fund is something that we're supporting here on Off the Ball. You can see the details there on your screen. We just want to let you know that tickets are available to purchase right now for the Legends return. It's a match on November the 3rd where you're going to see Kilkenny take on Tipperary. It's in Bursalee. Tommy Welch will be there, JJ Delaney, Jackie Turrell, Henry Shefflin and Richie Hogan are going to lead the Kilkenny Legends 15, while the likes of Owen Kelly, Lar, Seamus Callinan, Padraig Marr, Brendan Cummins and Amanda's brother Paddy Stapleton will be lining out for tip. You can head over to tickets.ie to get your tickets for the game. Also, Saturday week, by the way, and watch out for this one right here on Off the Ball. We're going to be running an auction for the Amanda Stapleton Benefit Fund in advance of that match on November the 3rd. Keep an eye out for that. We're going to be auctioning off a place to potentially play on either that Tipperary or the Kilkenny team. So that's coming your way over the next little bit. You can check out all the best bits from today we spoke to. It seems like a lifetime ago now. In fact, it actually is. Jason Quigley at the top of the show following his win in Los Angeles overnight. So that all of that good stuff up on YouTube from Owen and myself and from Quinny for this morning. Good morning, good luck.
OTB AM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.